Hey everybody, you are tuning in to the Canary Cry live stream pre-stream. Congratulations for being here, and a big old congratulations to Sigger the Beast for first comment of the day award. Good job, Sigger the Beast. All right, everybody, we are about to get started in just a little under a minute here, but I want to remind everybody, go ahead and follow us on all of the locations. You must do it. You never know when we're going to disappear from your favorite YouTube channel or whatever. So that's follow us at YouTube, DLive, Twitch, Rumble, all over the place, baby. And more than anything, remember to follow us at the RSS feed, which just search for Canary Cry News Talk on whatever podcast player you want to use. We're there, baby. And let's see, anything else? Oh, join the mailing list. That's very important. You can head on over to canarycrynewstalk.com. New, refreshing website. Go check it out. Significantly easier to do all the things you want to do, like become a producer or join the mailing list. Whatever it is you want to do, canarycrynewstalk.com is for you. Okay, folks, we got a bunch of good show for you today, so make sure to stay hydrated and let's get going.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is May 10th, 2021. This is episode 335. And today, FLIPPY. That's right. And Razzle Dazzle, I'm your best buddy Basil.
And this is not Ginzo, but this is Gonz, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ. Welcome to the podcast where we bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. Lots of things happening over the weekend. Mother's Day. How was your mother over the weekend, Basil?
My mother was great. She was, yes, we're not currently in the same town, so we had a nice FaceTime call there. I conscripted my father to, here's the thing. As a true millennial, I still don't quite understand the postal system and how long it takes to send things through the mail, and that, I can't just automate Mother's Day card and gift on my phone. So had a little help from the father there, but it was a wonderful, wonderful time. Hello, Mother Basil.
Well, good. My daughter turned 20, which is crazy, right?
That is crazy.
She's no longer a teenager.
Oh my gosh.
It happened to fall on the same day as Mother's Day, so there was a double thing going on there. But yeah, good times.
So yeah, exciting day. Lots of things for you to pay attention to on that day.
May is our family. The women in our family. May is like it's my personal May Day. Like the entire month is just filled with birthdays and
I was gonna say
Mother's
that gives a
Days
whole new meaning to May Day.
Yeah, completely new situation over here. But it was good weekend with the fam, and yeah. But did you catch Elon over on that show they call Saturday Night Live? Was that what it is?
What is this bit you're doing?
I don't know. I grew up watching Saturday Night Live, and it used to be something to watch, something to look forward to. Yeah. But now I haven't watched it in a while.
Well,
and,
here's the thing. Neither did I. I haven't watched it. You catch clips on YouTube and stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, as a cultural event, I was happy to put in the work, folks, and watch it for you. But I think it went about as well as we should have expected for Elon doing some sort of performance.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt uncomfortable watching him. Like the whole time I felt uncomfortable. Like, oh,
yeah.
When is he gonna...
he did mention, and I think the thing that did save him, it's been pointed out, was that he did announce at the very beginning that he had Asperger's. So it kind of, you keep that in mind as you watching it. Here's the thing. I didn't realize that the host is in like every single sketch. I thought they just kind of like did the monologue and then did like one special sketch and that was it. So I started watching. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Here's Elon dressed up as Wario. Okay, this isn't very funny, but okay, they're trying. And then, oh my gosh, he's in another one and another one. How many of these do I have to watch?
Well, he said he was the first host with Asperger's. Which is fake news. Fake news, Basil.
Okay.
Because Dan Aykroyd hosted in 2003, and Dan Aykroyd from Ghostbusters and all kinds of Blues Brothers and stuff. He has Asperger's, and he suffers with Tourette's as well. So I don't know if it was public at the time, but
yeah,
for Elon to say,
that's weird because these guys don't write their own monologues. They have access to all the Saturday Night Live writers who write these monologues.
Right.
So what did you read this on an anti-Elon blog or something?
No, it's just the truth.
Where did you hear this?
Well, if you want me to pull up a headline, I have it here. This is
I do. I want to know these Elon haters.
ET Canada. Which we're not too fond of Canada right now. But the headline is Elon Musk says he's the first SNL host with Asperger's, but Twitter remembers Dan Aykroyd. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, weird. Well, I blame it on the writers. Also, sorry, Canada, that Gons decided to come on the show and just burn you so casually.
Yeah, we'll get to
at the top of the show.
We'll get to the story of trying.
The producers from Canada we love. And
I do too.
I can never repay them for the work that they did by giving us Canada Arm 2. So thank you for the biggest robotic arm currently in space. And don't listen to Gons.
No, I'm I can't criticize the leadership over there.
Well, it's like talking about China. You have to specifically say the Communist Party of Canada.
I see.
Not,
all right. No, because I'm not going after the people of Canada. I'm going after the authorities of Canada,
right?
Who are just power tripping like crazy. We'll get to the story, but let's just
we know this. Just saying Canada is racist. You can't do it.
Oh, okay. Or is it nationalist? Nationalist?
No, it's racist.
Oh, it's racist.
They got their own genes up there.
All right. Whoa, hey. I like how you blame me and then you say the derogatory line.
How is that derogatory?
They have their own genes up there
right now. Is
like
what
they have
doing.
They have their own genetics going on. What's that all about?
Their own genetics. I'm calling off this woke off. The woke off is complete.
Are you even woke?
Well, you know who was woke was Elon. I got a couple of. I made a montage for anybody who missed it. This first one, it's about a minute long. It's just Elon, all the Elon moments. Just in a minute here from Saturday Night Live.
I'm Father Dover. Your daughter and I were friends.
What I have to say right now might be a little cringe. Hear me out on this. We could tunnel down into the earth and come up underneath them. I do like electric horses and self-driving horses, which are just horses. But I've also built a machine that can dig a tunnel 10 times faster than a gopher. I propose that we use it to ambush the Pearl River Gang. I just can't hold it any longer, Uli. I'm in love with you.
Chad, this is Elon Musk. Who? Elon Musk. I'm in charge of the whole Mars colonization project. Make the feed public. Everyone needs to see this. I want the world to see the man who gave everything to ensure that humanity's future will be among the stars.
Okay.
No, don't take your... The defense calls Wario.
No, I am not the evil. I just misunderstood.
All right. I'll have order in this court.
This is the longest minute of Canary Cry News Talk history.
I was going to comment throughout, but I just waited.
We were doing a show.
Oh, wow. You got that tranced, huh?
I just got entranced.
Wow. Okay. Well, a couple things I wanted to comment on. First off, the skit there with Elon, heading the Mars mission there. Mm-hmm. And he has this moment where he tells them to broadcast to the world. This guy, Chad, he's kind of an ongoing joke with Chad. He's kind of doesn't know what's going on or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it made me think, though, this has to be some kind of subtle predictive programming, because just like the way they had the whole moon landing broadcast to the world, I think they're definitely planning a Mars broadcast type of situation to the whole world. The whole world's gonna watch as people first take their first steps on Mars, and Elon's gonna be in the control room there and all that.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting.
They played up the billionaire visionary thing throughout the entire thing, how he's changing the world. I mean, it was a great PR move for Elon.
It was just all of his things intertwined throughout the whole night.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to go off of with that guy. I'm surprised you haven't mentioned it. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing for me was they brought on Light, his mother.
Oh, yes. May Musk.
Yeah.
That was at the very beginning on the monologue. Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
We've gone through her thing in the past. I mean, she's a very interesting lady, sort of a kind of the Illuminati matriarch of South Africa.
Yeah, I have a whole video on it on the Face Like the Sun channel. If you dig around for Elon Musk on the channel, you'll find it from a couple years ago.
Right.
I just included the Wario thing because I thought that was the funniest thing. That's the only thing that really made me laugh, was Elon dancing in the Wario outfit there. Otherwise, when he spoke, it was kind of the whole time, but when he was dancing, it was kind of, that kind of works. Yeah. The other one here, this is, of course, all the mentions of money and Doge and all that. So I have a little snippet here from a couple of the skits there.
What if instead of panning for gold, we just create our own currency?
Currency?
Yeah, and what the heck would it be based on? Whatever we say it's based on? That ain't how money works! Money is a golden rock that we dig out of the ground. Then we hope no one kills us before we trade it for pieces of green paper. It's a perfect system.
Thank you, Michael.
Well, now,
the Doge Father.
Okay, Doge Father. So, what are cryptocurrencies?
They're a type of digital money, but instead of being controlled by a central government, they're decentralized using blockchain technology. And lately, prices have been soaring for cryptos like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and especially Dogecoin.
Oh, right. Now, what is Dogecoin?
Well, it actually started as a joke based on an internet meme. Mm-hmm. But now it's taken off in a very real way.
Okay, but what is Dogecoin?
Well, it's the future of currency. It's an unstoppable financial vehicle that's going to take over the world.
I get that, but what is it, man?
I keep telling you, it's a cryptocurrency you can trade for conventional money.
Oh, so it's a hustle.
Yeah, it's a hustle.
Why didn't you say that, man? Doge Father, everybody.
I don't think we can just play long spans of
it's
SNL
edited
on the channel.
It doesn't matter. It's edited, and we're demonetized anyway. Who cares? I don't care.
Well, it might take the video down. It might give us a strike. I don't want any of that.
They're not going to give us a strike
again.
for that. They're just going to tell us that we can't monetize the video, which who cares, because we're already demonetized. Doesn't matter.
All right,
Point being,
on.
You missed the part where he says Doge to the moon, because the big story, Yahoo Finance, SpaceX to launch Doge 1 to the moon. Thought it was a fake story, but nope. It says here, Geometric Energy Corporation announced today the Doge 1 mission to the moon, the first ever commercial lunar payload in history paid entirely with Doge, will launch abroad the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. Geometric Energy Corporation's Doge 1 mission to the moon will involve Geometric Space Corporation mission management collaborating with SpaceX to launch a 40-kilogram CubeSat as a rideshare on a Falcon 9 lunar payload mission in Q1 of 2022. The payload will obtain lunar spatial intelligence from sensors and cameras on board with integrated communications and computational systems. Quote, having officially transacted with Doge for a deal of this magnitude, Geometric Energy Corporation and SpaceX have solidified Doge as a unit of account for lunar business in the space sector, said Geometric Energy's Chief Executive Officer Samuel Reed. You think this is fake, but this is legit. I thought it was like an Onion story or something. Quote, this mission will demonstrate the application of cryptocurrency beyond Earth orbit and set the foundation for interplanetary commerce, said SpaceX Vice President of Commercial Sales, Tom Ochinero. Quote, we're excited to launch Doge 1 to the moon. Indeed, through this very transaction, Doge has proven to be a fast, reliable, and cryptographically secure digital currency that operates when traditional banks cannot and is sophisticated enough to finance a commercial moon mission in full. It has been chosen as the unit of account for all lunar business between SpaceX and Geometric Energy Corporation and sets precedent for future missions to the moon and Mars. So there you go. I mean, this is legit, legit headline coming out of Calgary.
Yeah, well, it's continuing in his mission to show that cryptocurrency can be actually used as a currency and not just an asset.
Sure.
So, on that other sort of world-changing mission he's on, taking steps. But yeah, Doge literally going to the moon, which did not apparently work out quite as well as the Doge boys would have thought, because Doge is down another 30% or something
buy
today.
the rumor, sell the news. There's a saying in the crypto world. You knew as soon as it got this mainstream, people were going to sell it off. I mean, if you are familiar with the crypto space, I think people knew that was going to happen. So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So did you lose your Doge investment there? Did it go down? You lost some money?
Oh, I'm fine.
We have our Canary Cry Radio stash of Doge, thanks to a producer that gave us Doge for the first time in the last episode. Quite the roller coaster over the weekend.
It's a fun time.
Went up, went down. And one more thing, speaking of Mars and space and all that kind of stuff, there's a story here from Popular Mechanics. Did you hear about this, Basil? Scientists believe these photos show mushrooms on Mars and proof of life. You want to hear about it?
Tell me.
Okay. Don't get too excited. Could there be mushrooms on Mars? In a new paper, an international team of scientists from countries including the US, France, and China have gathered and compared photographic evidence they claim shows fungus-like objects growing on the red planet. In their paper, which appears in Scientific Research Publishing's Advances in Microbiology, the scientists analyze images taken by NASA's Opportunity and Curiosity rovers, plus the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter high-rise camera. The objects in question show chalky white-colored spherical shaped specimen, which the Mars Opportunity team initially said was a mineral called hematite. Later studies refuted the hematite claim. Soon some scientists coined the term Martian mushrooms to describe the mysterious object because of how they resemble lichens and mushrooms, while in another study, fungi and lichen experts classified the spheres as puffballs, a white spherical fungus belonging to the phylum Basidiomycota found on Earth. In the new paper, the scientists point to a set of Opportunity photos that shows 9 spheres increasing in size and an additional 12 spheres emerging from beneath the soil over a 3-day sequence. Interesting. The researchers claim Martian wind didn't uncover the amorphous spheres and that they, quote, expand in size or conversely change shape, moving to new locations and or wane in size and nearly disappear. The scientists continue, quote, many of these ground-level spherical specimens also have stalks or have shed portions of their outer membranes, possibly crustose, and are surrounded by white chunks and fluffy spore-like material that may consist of leprose. Crustose and leprose are kind of fungus surface textures where crust or scales form and can flake away. We got some pictures here for those of you watching the stream. The presence of these spherical parts is important, the scientists say, because it helps them make the case that what we're seeing really is fungus instead of simply some spherical rocks. Mushrooms grow and reproduce like gangbusters. It's one of the defining characteristics of the entire family of fungi. Small mushrooms grow in about a day, while large mushrooms take up to 4 days. Here's the line that's kind of interesting. In their research, the scientists carefully document all the ways their proposed fungi change from one photo to the next. Quote, white, amorphous mass alters shape, location, and almost completely disappears from inside the crevice of a rock shelter over a 3-day period. They explain in one image set below. So they're definitely catching moving mushrooms on Mars, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
I guess.
I mean, that would be a pretty humongous deal if there was life on Mars, mushrooms growing and moving around and, making decisions like that. That would technically be the first life on another planet.
But if there were really were mushrooms on Mars, what would it mean in a future where humans hope to settle on the red planet? Well, the scientists may say many fungi on Earth are also extremophiles, meaning organisms that can thrive in conditions considered extreme in terms of the usual building blocks of life. So to find mushrooms on Mars is perhaps less surprising than we think. And it goes into a couple more things here. But, this kind of reminded me of the Jesus and Christianity as a mushroom cult narrative. Have you looked into that narrative at all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's The Immortality Key.
Sure.
By what's his face? Tracked the use of mushrooms and ergot, which is the mold or fungus, I forget which one, that LSD is synthesized from.
Right.
And it's Grecian roots. Right.
There's a guy named John Allegro who wrote the book The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross. He was originally an archaeologist that worked on the Dead Sea Scrolls, and he went down this rabbit trail of saying the whole thing is a big all the stuff in the Bible is one big misunderstanding. It's just a mushroom trip, and Jesus was a mushroom, and he goes into the whole deal. Right. But I think it's interesting that whatever the propaganda here is with the Mars mushroom, that they can totally take the John Allegro type of narrative and try to apply it. It's kind of, I don't know, it feels like a backhanded slight eventually to, because all kinds of space missions and Mars missions and all that is very anti-God. Like ultimately, it's not like directly, but it just feels like it's the secular world. It's proving that we don't have to stay here. It's proving that we're destroying Earth and all kinds of stuff. So, I don't know. It just, there's not much more in terms of commentary from my end. I can go down the rabbit trail more if you want me to, but just for the sake of the conversation, we started off with Elon talking about all this stuff, and then, just the news of mushrooms on Mars.
Yeah, I mean, I would push back a little bit on space exploration being inherently anti-God, but yeah, I mean, the big thing about this story is that that's a pretty big, if indeed, and they are being slow to actually claim for sure that it is a fungus, it seems like there would be some sort of instrument on the rover that they could take a sample and actually check it out instead of just blurry pictures.
Well, they move. Didn't you hear them? They move around.
Something moved. Yeah, they're not sure if it's a mineral or dust or something, but yeah, I mean, if indeed there were mushrooms growing on the planet, that would be a pretty big deal. And it is an interesting connection to the social movement of the mushroom thing, because yeah, you do talk about, or there is a conversation about psychedelics or entheogen psilocybin mushrooms being sort of the root of spirituality for evolved man in that theology. That the fungus being sort of the precursor, or I guess also the leftovers, whether you want to think of Mars and life on Mars as there was once life and now it is gone and all that's left is the mushroom, or there hasn't been life yet except for this very magical mushroom growing up there, just waiting for Elon to come trip on Mars.
Well, the John Allegro, who's later was shown to have tremendous connections to the CIA. So he wasn't just a random guy doing research or whatever. He was definitely influenced and well connected with the Huxleys and all this kind of stuff. But he talked about how manna in the book, in the Bible, was basically a mushroom, and that in Psalms it talks about how manna was angel food, and so he makes the connection that it was just mushrooms that you can see into other realms and stuff. And I'll push back against your thing about it's anti-God to go up there to explore space or whatever. Obadiah 1:4, though you soar aloft like the eagle, though your nest is set among the stars, from there I will bring you down, declares the Lord.
Who is he talking to there?
Edom.
Yeah. Get out of there, Edom.
Yeah.
Well, in the Immortality Key, this was by I'm seeing on Amazon here. I don't remember this name. Brian C. Murarescu. He talked about the original sacrament. Taking the bread and the wine was sort of a redesigned sacrament for Christianity after, the Catholic Church took over and didn't want anybody actually having the real sacrament, which was the mushroom.
Right. That's all John Allegro stuff, by the way. It sounds like this guy
references. That's okay. I'm just saying, from the book that I read, The Immortality Key, in which he does reference John Allegro. I'm just saying that's where I learned about it.
Okay.
But yes, and The Immortality Key being a book that came out in 2020. So if you're looking for a current example of how this is making it into the conversation, it's very interesting.
Yep. I think it's all tied together. But the other thing that's tied together are robots.
Flippy update.
Do you want fries with that?
These robots are tied together. By the way, I think might need to be said, Gons, you're pretty hopped up on caffeine this morning.
Sure.
In our pre-show communications, I was trying to see where you were, and your responses, I'm like, oh my gosh, did he just get hammered? Did he have margaritas for breakfast or something? This guy is out of control. And anyways, let's
had
talk
my
about
sake bombs early.
There you go. For anybody worried about the pace at which Gons is running this morning,
I had this tradition of holding a sake, a little bit of sake on the tip of a katana sword, and I live on the edge, man.
Yeah, sure. See what I mean, folks? What the heck is he even talking about right now? I have no idea.
Okay.
All right. This is time for a Flippy update, folks. If you don't know, Flippy is our colloquial name for the disembodied robot arms that are taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and flirting with our spouses. We use talking about Flippy as a way to discover all the new, fun, and exciting ways that robots are taking over the world. Now there's nothing we can do about it. Today, taking an article from CypressMail.com. Cypress Mail, founded in 1945. I know, I had never heard of it either, folks.
This website is 75 years old. It's crazy.
Apparently, yeah, they're the oldest known website. The headline is Robot Arm for Delicate Tasks, made in China. Can't open a bottle of water? A soft robotic arm will do it for you. Researchers from the University of Science and Technology of China have developed a soft robotic arm that can perform delicate daily tasks, cleaning windows, opening doors, bottles, as well as drawers. Gripping a piece of tofu and drawing straight lines with a ruler are no problem for a robotic arm. Mechanical arms widely used in industry are usually stiff and rigid. They can perform with higher precision, but lack the finesse to reach and interact with an environment that is not structured and predictable. Li Deyi, academician, Academician of the Chinese Academy of Engineering said in a recent speech that a fundamental problem is a contradiction between openness and closedness in the development of the new generation of artificial intelligence. Inspired by bee honeycombs, a team of USTC researchers put forward a novel structure called honeycomb pneumatic networks. It combines a honeycomb-shaped skeleton with a pneumatic network. No kidding. Providing stable shapes, relatively large load-bearing capacity, quick response, and softer interaction with its environment. Like hexagonal prismatic cells housing bee larvae and storing honey, a honeycomb-shaped structure can provide minimal density and high compression properties. When the chambers of the pneumatic network inflate, the robotic arm can bend and move in all directions through changing the honeycomb structure, waving freely like an elephant trunk. Wow, the poetry of this robot is incredible. The robotic arm is very light and can be made by 3D printing and costs about $500 to print a 60-centimeter long robot arm. The cost of the control system to drive the arm is relatively high, yada, yada, yada. So here we go. We're talking about the soft robotics again. This comes up once in a while. Now, I do want to mention, Gons, I had a dream yesterday, last night. I had a very strange series of dreams, actually. But one of the dreams that I thought is relevant to this conversation is there's this one guy who was in the whole dream, and he was very annoying and nobody liked him. And at the end of my dream, the door swings open. And remember, we were reporting on the FLIPPY arms that are the humongous ones that are on tracks that can move autonomously in a warehouse.
Yeah,
they're like 12 feet high or something. One of those comes through the door and is holding a gun.
Oh, no.
And shoots the annoying guy. It was a FLIPPY assassin.
Wow.
Just the robotic arm, FLIPPY assassin. Yeah, so there you go.
That's it.
I'm currently searching for any prophets who want to decode that dream for me, and I will.
I don't think we need to decode anything about that dream. It's pretty self-explanatory. You spend too much time thinking about FLIPPY and the dangers, and it just manifests in your dream.
So that's the dangerous version of FLIPPY. But here we have the soft robotics. And when we talk about how robots are sort of going to become commercially available to the home, there's a lot of people working on these soft robotics because of the normal, metal structures and the hard robotics of a regular robot arm. They are pretty worried about there's this paragraph here. Rigid robotic manipulators require a closed environment. If a rigid robotic arm tries to turn on the microwave and a cat comes close, it could end in disaster. These rigid robotic arms are deadly in the home. But that's why we bring these nice, softy robots. And, there's a good chance that these soft robotics will be sort of the first in-home uses simply because of the liability issue. Mm-hmm. And also, it pushes back against the killer robot idea, sort of creating a soft one that you could overpower with your puny human strength in case it goes haywire. I don't know. I think when it comes to home commercially available robotics, these soft robots are going to be the first ones making their way into the home. But don't let them fool you, folks. They may look soft, but they got some hard friends.
You just need to call upon the gangstas, the gang, the mafia
they know how
version.
It works on the streets. The soft robot makes it into your home. Then while you sleep, it's able to go unlock the door, and then the FLIPPY assassin comes in.
Okay, so they're working together. This is the kind of robot that my wife would love. She always says how much of a brute I am, like opening, closing drawers and doors and stuff like that.
Just have one follow you around the house.
Until she can't open a jar or something, then all of a sudden You know, oh, can you open this jar? And then it's, you know, it's like, well, yeah.
Then the robot will be there. It sounds like the robot's the perfect match for your wife. It can follow you, clean up after you, and also open the jar for her. And so she doesn't need to, you know, put you to use.
Yeah, and also I saw some people in the chat mentioning how Flippy won't be flipping burgers if they're flipping or picking up tofu, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the vegetarian angle, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah, watch out.
Yep.
All right. There you go.
Just type it in on the Red Book. Soft robots will be first in homes. We'll find out.
All right.
Okay, so moving on. We have a pandemic special here.
A pandemic special!
And I included this in the pandemic special because we've talked about the cyber pandemic. And we got a couple stories here. First off, CNBC.com, ransomware attack forces shutdown of largest fuel pipeline in the U.S. Saw this story over the weekend, and most people were just freaked out about gas prices. But let's see what it says here. The operator of the country's largest fuel pipeline, Colonial Pipeline, fell victim to a cybersecurity attack on Friday that involved ransomware, forcing it to temporarily shut down all pipeline operations and raising concern that the outage could lead to spot shortages of gas, diesel, and jet fuel. The company confirmed it was the victim of a ransomware attack Saturday. Colonial Pipeline has hired a third-party cybersecurity firm to launch a probe into the incident and has contacted law enforcement and other federal agencies. The cyber attack has affected some of its IT systems, too. The FBI was notified of the disruption on Friday and is working closely with the company and government partners, a spokesperson said Saturday. Colonial Pipeline, which transports nearly half of the East Coast's fuel supply, said it is, quote, taking steps to understand and resolve this issue. Continued quote here, at this time, our primary focus is the safe and efficient restoration of our service and our efforts to return to normal operation, the company said in a statement. Quote, this process is already underway and we are working diligently to address this matter and to minimize disruption to our customers and those who rely on Colonial Pipeline, the company said. President Joe Biden was briefed on the incident Saturday morning, and the federal government is working to avoid supply disruptions, according to a White House spokesperson. Quote, the federal government is working actively to assess the implications of this incident, avoid disruption to supply, and help the company restore pipeline operations as quickly as possible, the spokesperson said. Colonial operates the largest refined products pipeline in the U.S., transporting 100 million gallons or 2.5 million barrels per day, according to its website. Refined products include gas, diesel, home heating oil, and jet fuel. Pipeline also supplies the U.S. military. Colonial systems span over 5,500 miles between Texas and New Jersey, connecting refineries on the Gulf Coast to more than 50 million people in the southern and eastern U.S., according to the company. Colonial Pipeline is privately held by 5 entities: CDBQ Colonial Partners, IFM, Colonial Pipeline 2, KKR Keats Pipeline Investors, Koch Capital Investment Company, and Shell Midstream Operations. And then it just goes into the fuel market impact here. Federal response. Biden administration in April announced a 100-day plan to protect the country's electric system supply chain from cyber attacks amid growing concerns over how vulnerable the U.S. power supply is to cyber threats. Which, again, goes to show, the first thing I thought when I heard this was like, oh, how convenient. You know, Biden has his whole infrastructure plan.
Right.
So we have to show how weak our infrastructure is. On top of, didn't every, what is it? Not Indy 500.
We're going to get in the race car debate again.
No, not the race car debate again. The big companies. What is it? What am I trying to think?
I have no idea. The big companies?
Yeah. The 500 companies are all in the stock
Forbes
market.
500?
Not Forbes. It's something else. Anyway. They all got hacked. Remember in the last hack at the end of last year? SolarWinds hack. Yeah. So I don't understand what was the after effect of that. Fortune 500. Thank you, chat. Fortune 500.
The Indianapolis 500.
The Indianapolis 500 cyber attacks.
Uh-huh.
That would be what if every
S&P
car
500.
S&P 500. Yeah. Okay, there you
That's the stock market one, I think.
go. Fortune 500 companies. Yeah. So, yeah, that was my first thought when I heard about this. And, it makes sense that, again, there would be more infrastructure attacks because obviously Biden wants to rebuild it to build back better and for the fourth industrial revolution and to make everything green. All that stuff.
Methodical breakdown of non-nationalized utilities. There was the Texas electricity grid. Now we have the East Coast petroleum pipelines, and the answer is declare a state of emergency, like they did in Texas, and then petition to nationalize the whole thing. It's all part of the control grab going on, and it's required, like you said, for Biden's infrastructure spending. I mean, how else are you going to lobby for $4 trillion if you're going to need the money to purchase all these big companies and turn them into government bureaucratic gummy works?
Right. And The Hill reported that regional emergency declaration issued over pipeline shutdown after cyber attack. So they did, announce it as an emergency declaration here. So, same pattern.
Interestingly enough, their response to it is to deregulate truckers, which was an interesting thing for, Democrats to do. Actually deregulate a union force.
So that they can carry out all the deliveries? Is that?
Yeah. So they're switching to, instead of using this pipeline, to loading up trucks. So, I don't know if truckers are happy or sad about this, but they get a bunch of overtime and they deregulated the amount of sleep that they have to get. Truckers right now, I don't know what the exact numbers are. I'm sure we have trucker listeners. They can let us know. I think you can only drive for like 4 hours at a time or something, and then you have to take a break. And
you know what this is? Again, I actually think this is an attack on the truckers because it's going to push for the autonomous cars and autonomous trucks and all that.
Well, that's definitely included. Yeah, I mean that might be part of. Let's talk about big evil plans for a second. One big evil plan could be, first of all, we need to mention. This was a ransomware attack on their business infrastructure.
Yeah, not the pipelines itself. Right? Not the technology, or I guess the
so
stuff that runs the
hack.
pipelines.
Yeah, this was not a hack on the actual physical computers that control the pipelines. This was a ransomware attack on the business computers, which basically means, if the claims are to be believed, that a bunch of Russians took control of their business computers, encrypted the information, holding it for ransom. And it stated in an NBC article about this that, the hack didn't even touch any of the infrastructure computers. So technically, they could still be running these pipelines. They chose to turn off the pipeline infrastructure. So this was not an attack on the infrastructure. This was a ransomware attack, which is just all about money. This is just whether they're Russian or not. I mean, they probably are Russian. It doesn't matter, but it's
Russian IPs for sure. Everything gets routed through.
It's a Russian IP.
Yeah.
So anyways, they chose willingly to turn off the pipeline because of, out of an abundance of caution. We don't want to, open up our system, yada, yada, yada. But the hack did not specifically shut down the infrastructure. So there you go. You shut down the infrastructure without actually putting anybody in danger. It gives a reason for Biden to push for nationalizing utilities. Then, like you said, deregulate a very highly unionized thing. And industry, the trucking industry, very unionized. And Biden, being a union man, he's from Scranton, and he's a union man, like my daddy, coal miner, farmer, whatever. And so, he's working with the unions on this deregulation of the trucking industry. I don't know if the truckers are happy or sad. I know they get to make more money, but because of all the overtime pay they're going to get. But then that becomes a catalyst for, oh my gosh, we got to pay these humans so much overtime pay.
And they have to break every 4 hours? What is this nonsense? We live in 2021. Roll out the robots.
Right. It's time to get the robots. You don't have to pay robots overtime pay. So unfortunately, it's a little bit of a bait and switch in that for a short term, truckers are going to be making a bunch of money, but the trucking company is going to decide, oh, this is a perfect time to bring out the robots. And right now, I believe that there's a time limit on this deregulation, June 8th, if I remember correctly, but can be renewed. So it's very similar to the 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We've got 1 month to fix the pipelines, and then don't worry, everybody goes back to their regular schedule. But of course, if anything, if we have learned anything over the past year and a half, it's that, hey, if a deadline can be extended, it will be extended.
Yeah, and one thing to note, the name of the ransomware that was used was called DarkSide. And I was like, where have I heard that? And I think it's because we've done some Nephilim updates in the past, probably 6 months to a year. There's been a bunch of ransomware, and one of them was called DarkSide, but it was listed right next to Nephilim. Remember Nephilim being one of the ransomware that's been out there this last year that's been causing issues?
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting that I have this image up here, which was Security Boulevard. It mentions a certain type of ransomware that, including Defray 777, Mespinoza, Babuk, Nephilim, and DarkSide. And I think DarkSide was the one that was used here in this alleged hack here.
Yeah, but it was DarkSide.
But you have this other link. I don't know. Is this the link that did you add this RT?
The RT? Yeah, I thought the RT was hilarious. Let me jump over to this RT. So RT, Russia Today gets a lot of gets a lot of pushback, of course, for being Russian state-run media, which could be good in some times, could be bad in the others. But this was just a funny way that they did it. The headline is Western media outlets raise familiar Russian hacker boogeyman in ransomware attack that shut down safety risk U.S. fuel pipeline. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just to get an idea, citing various cybersecurity sources, in quotation, air quotes there, citing various cybersecurity sources, multiple U.S. media outlets have attributed the shutdown of the country's biggest fuel pipeline to a ransomware attack by a cyber criminal gang called DarkSide, with alleged links to Russia. So they go through the whole story, but it's all in this and this CNN is reporting it this way, and these Western outlets are just blaming Russia. Look at these idiots. But then at the end, they go into this. Colonial Pipeline, which reportedly accounts for 45% of the East Coast supply of gasoline and other fuel, is still developing a restart plan for its operations system. A number of main lines remain offline after being taken down to, quote, contain the threat, which affected the company's IT systems. Some media reports have downplayed the company's checkered track record on pipeline safety. Last August, it emerged that a rupture in one of its pipelines in North Carolina caused more than 1 million gallons of gasoline to be spilled, the worst in the state's history. That figure, arrived at by Colonial, has since come under official scrutiny. In March, the Transportation Department's Pipeline and Hazardous Material Safety Administration deemed the continued operation of the pipeline system as is to, quote, pose a pipeline integrity risk to public safety, property, or the environment. The PHMSA, that's the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration, also noted Colonial's history of spills, standing at 272 incidences nationwide since 2000, and, quote, inability to effectively detect and respond to them. According to the reportage, That is a great word. According to the reportage from the social media-based news outlet MCSC Network, the company checked only 649 miles of tracks in 2019, up from just 100.
Only 649 miles. It only checked
four cracks in 2019, up from just 150 miles the previous year. In 2016, a Colonial pipeline explosion killed one worker and spilled 4,400 barrels of gasoline into a pond in Alabama. 4,400 barrels of gasoline.
That's a lot.
That is a pond in Alabama. Later that year, an underground leak of over 7,000 barrels was discovered in the state. The company had to pay $3.3 million in damages and penalties for both incidences.
That's not that. That's like a slap on the wrist.
It's not a big amount of money at all for an oil pipeline. That's a pocket change. Interesting. 3.3. You got the 33 in there. But yeah. So, anyways, I just loved the response from Russian state media of like, Western media is blaming it on us again, which is hilarious. I mean, we tracked the rise of the Russian boogeyman starting in 2015, 2016, where we had almost never talked about Russia for the previous almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they came up as the bad guys. But yeah, Russia Today ending this whole article with just a breakdown of every failure of Colonial.
Let's just list the problems that they've had in the last.
Which I don't doubt. I mean, these pipeline companies are notorious for. I mean, it's a lot of work. You know, you got 5,000 miles worth of pipeline to have those constantly checked for breakages. It's just cheaper to, get insurance and just wait for them to break themselves.
And if anybody knows about pipelines, it's Putin.
That's true. He is very knowledgeable about pipelines.
Isn't he like? Doesn't he? All the pipelines he's trying to run through.
Ukraine is a big part of it. Turkey.
Isn't he like the CEO of the biggest oil company in Russia or something?
I don't recall, but yes, he has a personal stake in the well-being of Russia's oil industry. It's the oil oligarchs, and if you go through Putin's history, which is really fascinating, we don't have time to do it now, but basically before Putin, the president of Russia, it meant nothing to be the president. Mm-hmm. They just had a bunch of goofballs as the president. The president had no power, but then when Putin came in, he started arresting and intimidating all the oligarchs and basically said, hey, if you're an oligarch, I'm going to arrest you and put you in a cage and show you to the world unless you give me 50% of your business. And so he personally owns the majority of oil stock in Russia.
Yeah. I see some people talking about the Temple Mount, and we'll get to that in the second half of the show. One more thing to mention about this ransomware attack. If you go to the Colonial Pipeline website here and go into the About page, you can find this bio on Angela Kolar. She's the Colonial Pipeline's Vice President of Operations Services and Chief Risk Officer. And it gets into her history here. And then it says, in her previous role as Southeast District Director of Operations, she oversaw operations and maintenances across 5 states. In 2004, she joined Colonial as Senior Accountant and has since transitioned through various leadership positions, including Director of Organizational Effectiveness, Director of Compliance, Operations Manager, and Business Manager. Prior to Colonial, she held positions with the public accounting firm and later with global pharmaceutical company Pfizer.
Good.
So there you go. I don't know if there's a direct connection, but it just seems, nothing's not connected. These people are, all kind of playing musical chairs up in the elite realm of running companies like this, oil, big pharma. It all kind of works in the same way. So just a little tidbit there, just some info drop. Nothing.
I see some
conclusive.
People complaining about a lot of things in the chat. one person is insulted that I keep mentioning that Biden is from Scranton.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. That's where he's from. And that's where he
doesn't
born.
like hearing it every single episode because I think they're from that area and he doesn't like being reminded.
Every single episode.
You bring it up quite a bit.
I don't think I bring it up every single episode.
Make a montage.
Make clips.
Timestamp.
Make the montage. Send it in. I challenge you on that. And then secondly, there's some people saying truckers over the road are not union and are paid per mile, not by the hour. Get your facts correct. I mean, a very simple Google search here is showing me a very highly unionized industry. Maybe in your experience, I'm sure there's lots of non-union jobs. I don't know what to tell you. If someone's a true blue trucker out there, go ahead and send me the info. But as far as the internet's concerned,
hasn't it been
the Teamsters union? It's like the oldest union in the country.
Yeah, as of this is 2013 logistics management info here, but it says in trucking about 2% of all 3.5 million truck drivers are ununionized. It's back in 2013. Okay. I don't know what the numbers are in 2020.
2%. There you go.
2%. Yeah. So I think majority of truckers
just people shouting at me in the internet and thinking I don't know what I'm talking about here. I have Google just as much as everyone else.
Go Google. Go Google. All right. So there you go. That's kind of the summary of the pipeline story there. We'll keep an eye on it, of course, and report anything that comes up. But there was another story regarding the pandemic special here. I wanted to separate pandemic special with the WACCINE category because I feel like we can really hone in on the WACCINE stuff, and we'll get to that after this. But do you want to take this one, Basil? This is why I was going after the Canadians.
The Canadians.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Oh, yeah. This was a nice little update. This was MSN.com.
It's not nice. What are you talking about? Nice.
Well, I would say in the narrative of what's going on, this is a very motivating and activating event.
Okay.
The headline is Calgary street preacher Artur Pawlowski arrested and charged after defying public health orders. This is the Nazi scum guy, right?
I think so. It's this guy right here.
Nazis are not welcome here. Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths.
Damn, this guy.
Calgary police have arrested street preacher Artur Pawlowski after he failed to abide by public health orders, again during a Saturday church service during which dozens were congregating without masks with no regard for physical distancing.
Oh,
his brother, David Pawlowski, was also taken into custody. Both have been charged with organizing an illegal in-person gathering in addition to, quote, requesting, inciting, or inviting others to join them, said the Calgary Police Service in a statement. Quote, it is important to understand that law enforcement recognizes people's desire to participate in faith-based gatherings as well as the right to protest. However, as we find ourselves in the midst of a global pandemic, we all must comply with public health orders in order to ensure everyone's safety and well-being, the police service said. Alberta Health Services obtained a Court of Queen's Bench order on Thursday, which imposed additional restrictions on organizers of protests or demonstrations requiring compliance with COVID-19 safety measures, such as masking and attending limits. Quote, law enforcement agencies can act immediately under this injunction without the necessity of Alberta Health Services attendance. Alberta RCMP said in a statement issued Friday in response to the injunction, quote, there are a variety of ways to enforce this order, including the ability to issue tickets, fines, and criminal charges to individuals who are breaking public health orders by organizing and or attending these events. This can include arrest and removal any person who has notice of this order and chooses to act in violation of it. The Calgary police said in a statement on Friday evening the court order was a significant development. And they have the document there. Quote, in the event of non-compliance, the order provides enforcement powers, including the power of arrest for those who are organizing, promoting, and attending any public gathering where public health orders are not being followed. the statement said. We ask those who may be considering organizing and participating in any outdoor events to ensure they are familiar with the public health order requirements and to do their part to prevent further spread of the virus, the statement continued. Police said they served an organizer of street church with the court order prior to the weekend services without entering the establishment. Oh, so they brought, he said, come back with a warrant. Sounds like they got a warrant.
They got a warrant.
The service organizer acknowledged the injunction, but chose to ignore requirements for social distancing, mask wearing, and reduced capacity limits for attendees, and continued with the event, said the force, which resulted in the arrest. So I want to double check, make sure this is the same guy.
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same guy.
Yeah. So, anyways, I mean, I don't think this surprises anybody. Or is, I guess, the beginning of it. He got a lot of attention for kicking out the police out of his what was it? Was it? It was Passover. They came during the Passover service, and he kicked them out. He got a lot of attention, a lot of support from Christians all around the world. And the reason, there's a couple of layers to this, and I don't want to make it a huge thing, but, historically, the Christian church has thrived under persecution rather than it has under comfort. And this, I don't think, comes as any surprise to anybody who's been tracking things, especially going on in Canada, where, they're putting up walls around churches to keep people from going. And, the perp walk they gave this guy, he did a great job. I don't know if you saw the perp walk, Gons, or pictures of it, but he wasn't walking with them. He refused to move his own legs. Mm-hmm. So it was a dragging. Yeah. He was getting dragged. The preacher, holding a church service, getting dragged away by the Gestapo, was a very powerful image. And, it's not great. I don't approve of it, but no. I think it's going to be a very motivating and activating event with those very powerful images, which are, go a long way towards activating people, that more people start standing up in protest of this ridiculous treatment.
The charge this guy made to the authorities was calling them Nazis. And then they go do the most Nazi thing, They come in and they arrest the guy. In terms of optics, what are these guys think? In terms of the authorities there in Canada or Calgary, what are they thinking? Like, I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. What is the point they're trying to make if it's not shutting down church? If it's not shutting down and discriminating against people of faith or people of or freedom of movement and speech and all that kind of stuff. It's just I don't know. It's pretty outrageous.
Well, the sort of spiritual attitude and dominance over the establishment of the police department is trickling straight down from the top, being Trudeau, who, in a very classic fashion, displays all sorts of acts of fascism and including the corruption. So, he's equally as corrupt, equally as, fascist as any other quote unquote fascist that these social justice warriors are fighting against. And that spiritual influence flows all the way down to this police department. It's looking bad, and everybody knew that it was going to get worse before it gets better. But the more they rack up this tally of egregious acts, the more people are going to wake up.
That's true. It does have its I guess you can call it a positive in terms of waking people up effect, but it just drives me nuts. And I just don't trust anybody who has fake eyebrows, just a principle I live by. Any male
fake eyebrows.
You've never seen the Trudeau pictures with his eyebrows falling all over his face there?
No, does he really have fake eyebrows?
I think at one point
or something?
No. I think at one point he did a press conference And maybe I don't know, his eyebrows got shaved too close or something, so he had some fake eyebrows on there, and they started to come off a little bit. So
whoopsie
it's just a principle I live by, which is I don't trust any man with fake eyebrows. But that's just me.
Well, I mean, unless you have alopecia, and
okay, sure,
special medical eyebrows.
Yes. But if you don't have any issues, medical issues, and you're a leader in a country, and you do that.
Grow your own eyebrows, bro.
Grow your own eyebrows.
He's like, I need some bigger, bushier eyebrows to make me look powerful and manly.
I know. Can you imagine that conversation too? Like, some groomer guy or gal is like doing up his face, and they shave a little too close.
Very feminine in that picture.
Wow. This is a few years ago. This is before his beard. So.
Oh, that is why he grew his beard. It looks like he has eyelash extensions too.
Oh, it's possible. Yeah.
You never know. All right, what's next?
Let's go to some WACCINE. This is CNBC, mirrored by MSN. WHO, the World Health Organization, classifies triple mutant COVID variant from India as global health risks.
We have a triple mutant.
Teenage Mutant, Triple Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm just waiting. We are living in the Ninja Turtle world now. I'm just waiting for Shredder, all of them. I mean, what if Fauci is Shredder?
He kind of looks rat-like.
No, not talking about Shredder, not
not a rat man. What is the
Splinter?
What is the
Splinter is the teacher. He's the rat teacher.
Oh, okay, yeah, I got Splinter and Shredder mixed up. Oops.
Yeah. Okay, it says here the World Health Organization official said Monday it is reclassifying the highly contagious triple mutant COVID variant spreading in India as a quote variant of concern, indicating that it's become a global health threat. Maria van Kerkhoff, the World Health Organization's technical lead for COVID-19, said the agency will provide more details in its weekly situation report on the pandemic Tuesday, but added that the variant, known as B1617, has been found in preliminary studies to spread more easily than the original virus, and there is some evidence it may be able to evade vaccines. Ooh. Even though, didn't the death count, or at least the infection rate go up after they had the vaccines in India?
Yeah, all this started happening after they had vaccines available.
Which kind of goes into the thesis that has been out there about how the vaccines themselves promote a mutation and a stronger quote-unquote virus.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I thought you were going to go into the shedding thing, but
no, not the shedding
I mean,
thing,
there is the, I mean, that's the thing. If you have certain levels of immunity, it makes the virus fight harder to mutate.
Yeah, especially, those lab-created viruses. Got some extra juice.
Yeah.
I'll just read a couple more sentences here. Quote, and as such, we are classifying this as a variant of concern at the global level, she said during a press conference. Quote, even though there's an increased transmissibility demonstrated by some preliminary studies, we need much more information about this virus variant in this lineage and all of the sublineages, so we need more sequencing, targeted sequencing to be done. It's always more. Always it's kind of like the carrot on the stick, We need it's a situation, but we need more info, just to kind of get them out of any hard proof.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the Fauci mechanism where you don't need to actually be accountable for anything you say.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know if there's much more to get into with India there. I think this is clearly
we're all kind of aware of what's going on. Triple mutant. That's
the other
strong claim. We had the double mutant coming out of Brazil. We got the triple mutant coming out of India.
When's the quadruple? Let's put it in the red book. What country is going to bust out the quadruple virus?
Yeah, we can be like, throw a dart at the map. You're gonna guess. Yeah, and just for those who might be new to this double mutant, triple mutant thing, these are the amounts of mutation within a single sample. So usually when they find mutations or variants, they just claim it's like one little thing has changed in this specimen. But then, when Brazil had the double mutant, oh my gosh, 2 pieces of the code have changed, and now we got 3. So the funny thing about it now, of course, they have a whole storyline behind this whole India thing, but just because there is a mutation doesn't necessarily require that the mutation makes it more deadly, makes it more transmissible, makes it more anything. As far as the mutations go, it could just be like, oh, now the coronavirus likes cheeseburgers more or something. Could mean anything, but it's much more spooky to call it a triple mutant.
Yeah, 1 little, 2 little, 3 little mutants. The other thing with India, just to mention here, is that re-entry of the huge Chinese rocket that people were freaked out about over the weekend.
Right.
It landed in India. Or, no, I'm sorry. It didn't land in India. It landed in the Indian Ocean. So,
right, yeah.
One could suggest that this is another not an attack per se, but a warning to the Indian there.
Know. Whether it's on purpose or not, there's quite a coincidence that China and India have such unstable relations with one another, constantly getting in gunfights and frying each other with microwaves. And China's rocket just happened to land in the Indian Ocean.
Mm-hmm. Nothing to see here, folks. Just killed some Indian dolphins. All right.
Okay. Well, we got a piece of news here, and we can go straight to the CDC to learn about it.
Yeah, we can.
So long and short of it is the CDC is changing the cycle threshold of PCR tests for who? Not for everybody, but just for the vaccinated. For just a small amount of background, in case you're new to the show, PCR tests, quote unquote, the gold standard of COVID testing. Of course, the creator of such tests died about a month before the pandemic started, and also is on record calling Daddy Fauci a complete fraud, and that his PCR test is not for diagnosis purposes, but that's okay.
Yeah.
The PCR test has an aspect of it, something called the cycle threshold, which is metaphorically a knob that you can make the test more sensitive, less sensitive. The more sensitive you make it, you can basically get a positive test on just the tiniest bit of RNA or DNA, just a shred. For instance, the metaphor for that is you turn the cycle threshold up enough, you're able to say that there is a murderer in the house by smelling a fart that was there once, or finding a hair in the bedroom, and then calling it an active axe murderer within the house. The CT, which is cycle threshold, the CT, has been turned up as high as 40 throughout the pandemic, which experts, I'd say, have said that anything, above 30, you're pretty much a guaranteed false positive.
Yeah, I've heard 30, I've heard 35. Fauci recommended 35. The problem was that back in January of 2020, when the studies went out, there's a whole bunch of problems. Conflict of interest. The paper that the journal accepted and published happened in one day. Like one day after the paper was submitted, they published it, which is unusual for a scientific journal to do. Yeah, and it was fraught with issues. Yeah, it was fraught with issues from conflict of interest from the authors to not having any kind of procedure, like a actual procedure. There was no standard CT count or CT cycle threshold mentioned. And so any lab can do whatever they want. And that was something that was pointed out by medical professionals, not just not conspiracy theorists or anything like that, just people within the medical industry who pointed it out and said, "Hey, we have a problem here." I think back in November was when they actually published a whole paper refuting the original paper that the World Health Organization used to justify PCR tests around the world for COVID. But this is a cdc.gov/vaccine/COVID-19/health department/breakthrough cases. And on the website here, there's a segment called COVID-19 Vaccines Are Effective. And you got to dig in a little bit here, but there's a little tab for state health departments. And under the bullet point, because CDC would like to characterize the SARS-CoV-2 lineages responsible for COVID-19 vaccine breakthrough cases, including variants, there's multiple bullet points under that. And one of them says, for cases with known RT-PCR threshold CT value, submit only specimens with CT value less than or equal to 28 to CDC for sequencing. And it says in parentheses, sequencing is not feasible with higher CT values.
Oh.
So you have Fauci on record saying 35 cycles. And we even had a producer of the show call their local doctor. Do you remember this? A few episodes ago.
Yeah.
And ask them.
Talked to the vice president,
Yeah,
I believe,
he went
of
straight to the
LabCorp.
top. Straight to the top.
LabCorp, which is one of the biggest, testing things that a regular person can go to.
Yeah.
She was able to get to the vice president and ask about the cycle threshold counts.
And they were not able to definitively give a number, if I'm not mistaken, right? They weren't able to tell her.
Yeah, they wouldn't tell her what they're running the CT at.
So, it just, if a common citizen can call them up and you're not getting straight answers, and when we start getting straight answers from the CDC, it doesn't jive with what Fauci, Fauci has been back and forth on a lot of things, but I think this is a kind of a big deal, and I think it's a feather in the cap of many people who have been pointing out the problem with the PCR tests. Yeah. And so it's just interesting how the CDC, now that the vaccines are out there, they're like, hey, in order to show the effectiveness of the vaccine, let's accept
turn
tests.
down the knob.
Turn down the knob, but we only accept cycle thresholds lower than 28, and that'll be, a little
so
bit
they're
more
just
of a-
going to happen to get a lot of negative tests.
Yeah.
Which, again, this is the sort of sinister part about this is you can kind of manufacture any amount of positive or negative tests you want by turning up or down the cycle threshold. And, we got to show that the vaccines are doing something. So we'll just turn the number down.
As a caveat, last bullet point underneath it, if the CT value is not known, example, positive by antigen test only, or by a molecular test that does not contain or does not provide a CT value, the positive specimen may still be submitted to CDC for RT-PCR and possible sequencing. So, just leaving the door a little bit open there for liability purposes.
Sure.
But yeah, overall, I think this is something that for those of us who've been paying attention, is kind of a I tried to tell you moment.
I tried to tell you.
Okay, well, your buddy Tucker Carlson's been making a stink recently.
Yes, he has. My buddy.
Your buddy.
I like how we just assign friends in the mainstream to each. I give you a hard time about AOC. So is this like your payback? Is just my buddy Tucker Carlson?
Yeah, your buddy Tucker Carlson. You guys were on the swim team together. You took that spring break trip to New Orleans.
Don't talk about that. That's something that's not meant for air, Basil.
Oh, sorry. What happens with Tucker Carlson stays with Tucker Carlson.
When we raced in the bayou, when we returned to frogs, and we went on a whole adventure.
It's funny because he's just saying stuff that people have been saying forever. Independent creators online have been pointing out the VAERS database for basically the entire. Well, I mean, not okay. Let me say this has been around for a while, and long-term anti-vaxxers refer to the VAERS database for years now. But especially with the COVID vaccine coming out, the VAERS database discussion has been going on. So Tucker Carlson wanted to chat about it. We got a clip.
Between late December of 2020 and last month, a total of 3,362 people apparently died after getting the COVID vaccine in the United States. 3,362. That's an average of roughly 30 people every day. The actual number is almost certainly higher than that, perhaps vastly higher than that. The data we just cited come from the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, VAERS. VAERS is managed by the CDC and the FDA. VAERS has received a lot of criticism over the years, some of it founded. Some critics have argued for a long time that VAERS undercounts vaccine injuries. A report submitted to the Department of Health and Human Services in 2010 concluded that, quote, fewer than 1% of vaccine adverse events are reported by the VAERS system, fewer than 1%. So what is the real number of people who apparently have been killed or injured by the vaccines? Well, we don't know that number. Nobody does, and we're not going to speculate about it on this show. But it's clear that what is happening now, for whatever reason, is not even close to normal. We spoke to one physician today who actively treats COVID patients. He described what we're seeing now as the single deadliest mass vaccination event in modern history. Whatever is causing it, it is happening as we speak. So you'd think that someone in authority might want to know what it is, what's going on. If the vaccine injury reporting system is flawed, and clearly it is flawed, why hasn't it been fixed? And more to the point, why has there not been an independent vaccine safety board impaneled to assess what is happening and reassure people who stumble across official government numbers on the internet? But amazingly, none of that has been done. No one even mentions the numbers. And in fact, you're not allowed to. You'll be pulled off the internet if you do.
There you go.
Yeah. So there you go. There's VAERS. Now, the thing with VAERS, it's the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. We're going to go through the Politifact fact check real quick on Tucker Carlson, but then we're just going to compare it to the actual CDC website real quick. So I'm going to jump down halfway because they tell the whole story about Tucker Carlson, and we just heard it, so we don't need to go through it. But they go into VAERS reports are unverified and don't show causation. Unlike other official government sources, which flow through consistent reporting channels and get screened by statisticians and analysts before they are made available to the public, VAERS is an open access system. The reports submitted are not verified before they become public. Quote, anybody can report to it, Offit said. If I get a vaccine or I give my child a vaccine and I believe that they have turned into the Incredible Hulk, then I can write up a one-page report online and submit it, and that then is included, and that's been done. Let me go there. Okay, I opened another thing. I'm just gonna word search for Incredible Hulk to see if somebody actually did the Incredible Hulk thing real quick. Oh, I can't see my keyboard. Oh, it's in my lap.
I got it. Even the Hulk.
Okay, you do it.
Says to the Incredible Hulk. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay. A disclaimer on the VAERS website says the, quote, reports alone cannot be used to determine if a vaccine caused or contributed to an adverse event or illness, in part because they may include incomplete, accurate, coincidental, or unverified information. People accessing the database must click an option that says they've read and understood the disclaimer. Offit said VAERS works best as a hypothesis-generating mechanism that can tip scientists off to issues for further study, such as the rare cases of blood clots that prompted the agency to recommend a temporary pause on the use of Johnson & Johnson. In this case, the CDC has analyzed all reports of death among COVID-19 vaccine recipients that were submitted to VAERS between December 14th, 2020 and May 3rd. Quote, a review of available clinical information, including death certificates, autopsy, and medical records, has not established established a causal link to COVID-19 vaccines, the agency concluded. To establish causation, scientists need to find proof that an adverse event is significantly more common among vaccinated people than unvaccinated people. VAERS doesn't provide enough data to do that. So there's a key right there. They go into this thing. The CDC has analyzed all the reports of death among COVID-19, a review of available clinical information, including death certificates, autopsy, medical records. So they're saying that they put all this work into it, right?
Yeah.
And then they say, but VAERS doesn't provide enough data to do that.
I like how before last year, it didn't take much to show a connection between people who died and people who were, people died from COVID-19 or with COVID-19. It was all just kind of a thing. But now it's like, you got to have all this information before you can come to any kind of conclusions.
Right.
It's a very double standard thing going on. And also, just real quick, the Hulk thing, the Incredible Hulk thing, is a very old story. Because I found this, just real quick before we get back into it, I found this document here. It's titled Rethinking Liability for Vaccine Injury. It's a report done by Cornell University from 2010. And here's a quote from the article here that cites U.S. News and World Report. And it says, the CDC's current system of detecting rare problems is hit or miss. Perhaps the crudest tool is the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, which relies on doctors and patients to file a report if they suspect symptoms have been caused by a vaccine. Many problems filed with VAERS have nothing to do with the vaccinations. Real adverse events often go unreported. A better monitoring system, the agency's Vaccine Safety Data Link regularly scans 5.5 million anonymous health records provided by managed care organizations to see whether new vaccines are associated with a spike in certain conditions. So I'd like to know where the Vaccine Safety Data Link is in this whole thing here. But then right below that, it says that at least one physician has reported that to test the credulity of the VAERS process, he submitted a vaccine injury report that stated that after taking a certain vaccine, he was transformed into the Incredible Hulk. Right. Well, there it is. This is 2010, and it's reporting on cited a 2008 article from Science Blogs. So old story here, which means they're pulling up. In some ways, they're kind of grasping at straws to defend their position here. They're. I mean, it is true that somebody did that, but it was a doctor doing it, trying to prove the point that anybody
make
can.
A point.
Yeah.
But they don't mention that in the Politifact. They just breeze on past it, like, it's just a bunch of people messing with us. And they say right here, we did a big old review. We checked all these things, but VAERS doesn't provide enough data to actually do that. So we say it's all fake.
What in the world? Okay, read the next couple paragraphs in that Politifact article because it's outrageous.
I know. It really is ridiculous, and it surprises me that they think that this is convincing anybody.
Yeah.
As of May 5th, nearly 150 million Americans have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and many of the early shots went to older and more vulnerable people. Quote, when you're giving a COVID-19 vaccine to elderly adults, there are going to be people who die shortly after vaccination because they would have died anyways, Dr. William Moss, Executive Director of Johns Hopkins International Vaccine Access Center, previously told Politifact.
They're going to die anyway.
I know.
They're just going to die. It's just
no. But if they catch COVID and then die, that's a preventable death, and you killed grandma.
That's just that quote makes me angry.
I know. Well, and it goes back to the double standard.
It is.
If it's just, hey, if they say so, then every life matters. Even the 90-year-old cancer patient.
Right.
If they die of COVID, it's unacceptable, and it's because Trump killed them. But if they die after the vaccine,
they were going to die anyway.
Happens. Yeah. An estimated 8,000 Americans die every day of all causes, according to the CDC. Offit cited the case of baseball legend Hank Aaron, who died of natural causes, likely a stroke, weeks after getting his shot. Social media posts falsely claim the vaccine killed him. Quote, you can get the vaccine and still die for other reasons, similarly to how you can get COVID-19 and die for other reasons.
Yeah.
Don't talk about that. After his segment baselessly linking the COVID-19 vaccines to roughly 30 deaths per day, Carlson interviewed Martin Kulldorff, a professor at medicine at Harvard Medical School. Kulldorff told Carlson that VAERS is, quote, not a very useful system, in part because it doesn't take into account, quote, what is expected by chance in terms of adverse reactions. Carlson has questioned the vaccines and U.S. vaccination efforts on several occasions. In April, we rated pants on fire to his claim that maybe it doesn't work. Maybe they're simply not telling you that. Okay. How can you be pants on fire if you're saying maybe it doesn't work? Maybe, I don't know.
Because he's on Fox, and Fox is
true.
It's the right hand to the left hand of Politifact here. So
yeah. So anyways, we don't need to go through this. Of course, they say that they just bag on Tucker Carlson, which is a fun thing to do, by the way. I'm not against bagging on Tucker Carlson, but at least have a good reason to do it. Our ruling, Carlson, blah blah blah. They call it false.
Tucker Carlson said Trump shill.
Yeah, but notice how so anyways, we pointed out the Incredible Hulk thing, which is, they're trying to say like, oh, all these people reporting things, they're just messing with us. They're just messing with the system. VAERS is officially a CDC and FDA system.
Yep.
This is not just, and I've heard other talk about the VAERS system. People are in the mainstream are starting to catch on to it. And of course, all they do is just badmouth the VAERS system. They say, oh, it's nothing. But they never mention that it's an official CDC and FDA system. They make it sound like it's just a conspiracy theory of anti-vaxxers who are all getting together, thousands of them, and making this false database. But it's a real thing. And people put these reports here because there's nowhere else to do it. There's literally not another place to report if something happens to you after a vaccine. So, anyways, there you go. I had something else to go into, but I'm forgetting what it was. Shoot.
Yeah, I have the VAERS website, or actually the CDC.gov website that it talks about VAERS here.
Yeah.
Vaccine safety monitoring. It tells you a little thing about VAERS, and it says VAERS accepts and analyzes reports of possible health problems, also called adverse events, after vaccination as an early warning system. VAERS cannot prove that a vaccine caused a problem specifically. A report to VAERS does not mean the vaccine caused an adverse event. Very clear about that. So they're trying to make sure that people don't associate because of stuff like this. But then the question that Tucker Carlson poses there in that clip, which is a legitimate question, then what does? If VAERS isn't the thing, then is there a thing?
Right, and that's the point. There is no thing. The data that comes in VAERS is not good enough for these scientists to make any sort of conclusion, and there's nothing else that exists. Now, do we have any of the sources for the Harvard study of VAERS?
No, I can see if I can find it.
Okay, we might need to put that in the next show. But yeah, the Harvard study of VAERS, where they went in there, they're the ones who said like, oh, it's only capturing 1% of events.
Right. Yeah.
And then
2019 report, which reflects what I just read from the Cornell study.
They did mention it in there. Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't specifically say under 1%, but they mentioned how it's not capturing most of the
And
problems.
this was paid for by the CDC. They're like, how well is coincidentally they did it in 2019. So it's like, oh, let's see how good this VAERS system is doing. And they came back and said it's really not doing very good. You should fix it. We should make this a real thing. And then they just sort of ignored it. So
I'm very curious about this vaccine safety data link on COVID vaccines. Because if it really wasn't an issue, then shouldn't they have a report or something that would tell us?
They should. But see, here's the thing, Gons. The trick is don't do the science. If you don't do the science, then you can say the science doesn't support that. That's been the trick through the entire pandemic is, there's no clinical evidence to show that the vaccine is bad. There's no clinical evidence that hydroxychloroquine helps a thing. There's no clinical evidence that this or this or that. Well, they're not lying. There is no clinical evidence at all to say either way. And you don't want the clinical evidence because then you're not able to slither out of these little situations.
Yeah, I'm just surprised. I'm looking at the vaccine safety data link publications page on the CDC here, just some impromptu research. And the last report obviously is from 2020. And because they really didn't have too many COVID-19 vaccines to go by, well, it has one here. Let's see what it says here. As part of the CDC surveillance of COVID-19 hospitalizations, vaccine safety data link researchers identified 105 pregnant women with SARS-CoV-2 infection from March to May 2020. Of those, 43% were admitted COVID-19 illness. Yeah, but it doesn't really talk about the vaccines. That's the only thing from 2020. There's one report that mentions COVID-19 from 2020. Out of a bunch of them, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6, 7, I don't know. A good handful of 2020 reports from the vaccine safety data link publication. So I'm sure that by the time, 2021 ends and we're in 2022, the VSD, the vaccine safety data link publications, will make sure to tailor their information so that it doesn't reflect bad on the jab. So
there you go.
Keeping our eye on it. We're on to you, CDC. I guess.
Okay.
A couple podcasters are on to you. Okay, so we got one more here, and this one is from sciencemag.org. Headline: Further evidence supports controversial claim that SARS-CoV-2 genes can integrate with human DNA.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This is from Science Mag?
Sciencemag.org.
Okay.
Official thing.
This is that's very interesting. They're part of the AAAS, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
so this is theoretically a legit thing.
Yeah, you know how people were saying the vaccine's going to change people's DNA?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they were like, no, that's just wild conspiracy theory. Well, they're going to have to beat around the bush a little bit here. Here's what it says in the article. A team of prominent scientists has doubled down on its controversial hypothesis that genetic bits of the pandemic coronavirus can integrate into our chromosomes and stick around long enough after the infection is over. If they are right, skeptics have argued that their results are likely lab artifacts, that insertions could explain the rare finding that people can recover from COVID-19, but then test positive for SARS-CoV-2 again months later. Stem cell biologist Rudolf Janisch and gene regulation specialist Richard Young of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, who led the work, triggered a Twitter storm in December 2020 when their team first presented the idea in a preprint on BioRxiv. Is that I don't know. Is there a way to say that? BioRxiv? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't have it.
I remember this paper because it was used by some of the anti-vaxxers to show that it was, changing people's DNA. The researchers emphasized that viral integration did not mean people.
Is this about the virus changing DNA or the vaccine changing DNA? This is about the virus.
The virus, yeah.
Okay.
The researchers emphasized that viral integration did not mean people who recovered from COVID-19 remain infectious, but critics charged them with stoking unfounded fears that COVID-19 vaccines based on messenger RNA might somehow alter human DNA. In parentheses, Janish and Young stressed that the results, both original and new, in no way imply that those vaccines integrate their sequences into our DNA.
Right. Okay.
Researchers also presented a brace of scientific criticisms, some of which the team addresses in a paper released online today by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Quote, "We now have unambiguous evidence that coronavirus sequences can integrate into the genome," Janish says. SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, has genes composed of RNA, and Janish, Young, and co-authors contend that on rare occasions an enzyme in human cells may copy the viral sequences into DNA and slip them into our chromosomes. The enzyme's reverse transcriptase is encoded by line 1 elements, sequences that litter 17% of the human genome and represent artifacts of ancient infections by retroviruses. In their original preprint, the researchers presented test tube evidence that when human cells spiked with extra line 1 elements were infected with the coronavirus, DNA versions of SARS-CoV-2's sequences nestled into the cell's chromosomes.
Interesting.
Many
I wonder
researchers,
if this is responsible for the long haulers.
Mm-hmm. Many researchers who specialize in line 1 elements and other transposons thought the data were too thin to support the claim. Quote, "If I would have had this data, I would have not submitted to any publication at that point," says Cornell University's Cedric Fauchot, who studies endogenous retrovirus chunks in the human genome. He and others also said they expected higher quality work coming from scientists of the caliber of Janish and Young. In 2 subsequent studies, both posed on bioRxiv, critics presented evidence that the supposed chimeras of human and viral DNA traces are routinely created by the very technique the group used to scan for them in chromosomes. As one report concluded, the human virus sequences, quote, "are more likely to be a methodological product than the result of genuine reverse transcription, integration, and expression." In their new paper, Janish, Young, and colleagues acknowledge that the technique they used accidentally created human viral chimeras. Quote, "I think it's a valid point," Janish said. He adds that when they first submitted the paper to a journal, they knew it needed stronger data, which they hoped to add during the review process. But the journal, like many, requires authors to immediately post all COVID-19 results to a preprint server. Quote, "I probably should have said, forget you, I won't put it on bioRxiv. It was a misjudgment," Janish said. In the new PNAS paper, the team provides evidence that artifacts alone can't explain the detected levels of virus-human chimeric DNA. The scientists also show that portions of line 1 elements flank the integrated viral genetic sequence, further supporting their hypothesis. And they have collaborated with one of the original skeptics, Stephen Hughes of the National Cancer Institute, who suggested an experiment to clarify whether the integration was real or noise based on the orientation of the integrated viral sequence relative to the human ones. The results support the original hypothesis, says Hughes, the co-author of the new paper. Quote, "The analysis has turned out to be important," he says. Quote, "The integration data in cell culture is much more convincing than what was presented in the preprint, but it's still not totally clean," says Fauchot, who now calls Janish and Young's hypothesis, quote, "plausible." And in parentheses, SARS-CoV-2, he notes, can also persist in a person for months without integrating into genes. The real question is whether the cell culture data have any relevance to human health or diagnostics. Quote, "In the absence of evidence of integration in patients, the most I can take away from these data is that it is possible to detect SARS-CoV-2 RNA retroposition events in infected cell lines where L1 is overexpressed. The show says, quote, the clinical or biological significance of these observations, if any, is a matter of pure speculation at this point. I don't get it. It's like they basically found evidence for this hypothesis, but they're still not like willing to say or conclude. I mean, I guess it's science in general.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it probably should work. But yeah, that's interesting. It's kind of a switcheroo a little bit on the anti-vaxxers coming in being like, oh, the vaccine changes your DNA. And they're coming out like, well, no, COVID changes your DNA. You get the vaccine, it'll stop your DNA from being changed.
Janice and Young's team do report hints of SARS-CoV-2 integration in tissue from living and autopsied COVID-19 patients. Specifically, the researchers found high levels of a type of RNA that is only produced by integrated viral DNA as the cell reads its sequence to make proteins. Uh-oh. Did I lose Basil? I lost Basil. Hold on one second. Of course, right as I'm reading this important part here. Let's see if we can get him back. I wonder if he lost internet. I don't want to necessarily call him because I don't want the thing to ring for too long here. Let's see what happens. All right. Sorry about that. We got one more try. Hold on. I'm telling him to try again. Call. This is live, folks. This is what we get. We're doing it live. Okay. Where was I reading here? Hello, come on, Basil. Now I'm getting phone messages from him. 1 second here. Oh, he had a full crash. Okay. All right, he's probably restarting his computer there. But this is the line that really jumped out at me from this article here. I just read it here. Specifically, the researchers found high levels of a type of RNA that is only produced by integrated viral DNA as the cell reads its sequence to make proteins, which is, if I'm not mistaken, and I kind of want to bounce this off of Basil or anybody in the chat who knows here, that's kind of what the whole mRNA vaccine does, is it not? They make the proteins. So interesting that there's a change here in that regard. But Young acknowledges, quote, we do not have direct evidence for that yet, which is, again, they keep saying that they don't have direct evidence, although they have some other peripheral evidence. Harmit Malik, a specialist in ancient viruses in the human genome at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, said it's a, quote, legitimate question to ask why people who should have cleared the virus sometimes have positive polymerase chain reaction, that's the PCR tests, for its sequences. But he also remained unconvinced that the explanation is integrated virus. Quote, under normal circumstances, there is so little reverse transcription machinery available in human cells, Malik said. The controversy has grown decidedly more civil since December. Both Young and Janish say they received more intense criticism for their preprint than any studies in their careers, in part because some researchers worried it played into the hands of vaccine skeptics, spreading false claims that the newly authorized mRNA vaccines. Quote, if there ever was a preprint that should be deleted, it is this one. It was irresponsible to even put it up as a preprint, considering the complete lack of relevant evidence. This is now being used by some to spread doubt about the new vaccines. Mario Luis Hammarskjöld a microbiologist at the University of Virginia, posted in a comment on bioRxiv at the time. And what of the original journal submission? They rejected it, Janish says. So apparently they rejected the original count there. They're admitting that it was too hasty and all this, but when looking into the evidence a little more, they seem to have found more evidence to support the hypothesis that COVID does not necessarily change, but kind of linger in your DNA because it changes or gets into the chromosomes there. And so this whole thing is very fascinating to me because, again, there's never been the consensus amongst scientists about the virus and certainly about the vaccines. And, if you don't comply to the narrative, the official narrative, then you get canceled, in the medical world. And that's why we've seen a lot of people get fired or, just shut out of different social media platforms or whatever it is, even though they're multi-year medical professionals, doctors, nurses, stuff like that. And so when a study comes out that seems to even hint at this idea that it could affect people at the genetic level, not just COVID, or not just the vaccine, but the COVID virus itself. And again, I kind of want to get more insight from people that would understand specifically this sentence here. The researchers found high levels of a type of RNA that is only produced by integrated viral DNA as the cell reads its sequence to make proteins, because that's exactly what this mRNA vaccine does. It gives your body instructions to produce the spike protein. And, we can go reiterate the point about the Salk University study that we touched on the last couple episodes, where they clearly found problems with just the spike protein, not even the virus itself. So this whole thing is very interesting in regards to, what it all means. And I think it speaks to the not just the politicization of this virus. Oh, you're back.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Full catastrophic disaster.
Just a full shutdown, huh?
Just a full shutdown.
All right. Well, it happens every once in a while.
They don't like it. They don't like it when we talk about mean things.
Yeah. Well, I kept bringing up the point. I was right at the sentence that I highlighted is when you got shut down. So maybe they went after you instead of me.
The decoy worked.
But here's the sentence. I'll read the paragraph again just so you can get the full context here. Janice and Young's team do report hints of SARS-CoV-2 integration in tissue from living and autopsied COVID-19 patients. Specifically, the researchers found high levels of a type of RNA that is only produced by integrating viral DNA as the cell reads its sequence to make proteins. But Young acknowledges, quote, "We don't have direct evidence for that." And I brought that up and I highlighted that sentence because I was explaining this while you were rebooting. Isn't that the exact technology of the mRNA vaccine? It tells your body to make the protein?
Yeah. Is that what that just said?
Yeah. Well,
sorry. Read it one more time. Now knowing what I'm listening for.
And Numati in the chat is also kind of explaining what's going on here too. And
he's always there to explain. Thank you.
Okay, so the sentence is specifically the researchers found high levels of a type of RNA that is only produced by integrating viral DNA as the cell reads its sequence to make proteins. That's the mechanism, right?
Yeah, okay. This sounds like, sounds similar. It's interesting. They are saying a type of RNA. Is that type mRNA or is that a different type? Maybe Numati can tell us that.
Yeah, I'm reading. Here's what he says. He says in the chat, here's how I hear what he's reading. On rare occasions, viral RNA gets changed into DNA. That viral DNA can then, on rare occasions, get integrated into the cell's DNA. Then, when that integrated viral DNA gets transcribed, it gives the, quote, special type of RNA. Nothing in the article is saying that the spike protein is involved. It is likely various random parts of the viral sequence. Okay.
Yeah, this sounds like it's the actual virus, whereas with the vaccine, it's specifically the spike protein.
Okay.
So, yeah, maybe similar mechanism, but maybe a different part of the molecule.
Okay. Yeah, my greater point here was that, they go into how they were reprimanded for, publishing it too soon, and it fed into vaccine skepticism and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But I was pointing out how it's fascinating to see that, once again, there's not really a consensus here among scientists, and they're still looking at if you look at the actual research being done, there's a lot of things that we don't know, and, people just...
Well, that's another funny point that they keep making. Oh, there's no consensus on this one.
Right.
It's that obsession with consensus that is so interesting, because you look at the history of science, the consensus is usually wrong in the long run. Like, that's the whole point of science, is to not get stuck in a consensus. Now, I don't know. I admit we are in a objectively different period of history than, Galileo or something like that. I'm sorry, flat earthers. I'm just not going to get into it right now. I know there's questions surrounding Galileo, but the point stands is, just because something is consensus doesn't necessarily mean they just take advantage of that word, I think.
Yeah.
Like, scientific consensus is very important, and it's good, and it's gotten us a lot of places, but it's also very dangerous to just say, oh, cool, consensus, therefore it is correct.
Right.
And yeah, interesting how they bring up there's no consensus on this yet. Without bringing up, or do they bring up like an alternative view on this?
Not really.
Data.
Not really.
Yeah.
But again, interesting how the scientific papers are still being published. Meanwhile, the entire world economy was shut down. Just the whole.
Yeah.
The political response to it was a lot different from the actual science being done, which is why the politicization of science, and then the medical dictatorship that sort of sprung from it with Fauci.
Sure, yeah, there's plenty of other layers that are concerning than just consensus. Okay, well, that's very interesting. So they're mad that they put this particular information out before peer review?
At the end it says that the paper, or the paper that they hastily published, was rejected. So, Can you refresh your video? It's doing the green transparent thing. Yeah.
Doing the thing.
And people asking, where's the Temple Mount story? We'll get to it after the break here, but let's, you want to do a little pandemic, what is it called? I was going to say pandemic party, but that's not it. What is it?
Let's take a break, do a little producer party.
Producer party.
It's break time.
Pee-pee break. Okie dokie, folks. We're just going to take a quick break. Does my audio sound different?
It's got a little, the online thing going on a little bit, but.
Okay. Yeah. Even in my local system.
Oh, no, you're green again.
Oh, no. Well, I'll just have to be green for a little bit. Anyways, here you go. Time for a little break. I just want to take a second, or we just want to take a second and thank our producers. That's right, baby. I said producers. That's because we are on the value for value model. And you might think, oh, goodness gracious, just show me an ad for something. Just try to sell me something, baby. Just monetize me, baby. No, we're not going to do that here. You may have noticed no ads, no affiliate codes, no Super Saiyan natural vitamin supplements. No, we don't do any of that because we're on the value for value model, which means that we have shunned the global theology of advertising, which really tries very, very hard to get Gons and I to monetize your attention and your trust and your time. And to commoditize you, to pack you up, put you on a truck, ship you off to an advertiser so that they can have free reign to mind control you, to monetize your attention and turn you into an all-consuming zombie, an economic unit. No, sir, not here. We don't get into none of that Hegelian dialectic nonsense telling you have a problem and that the only way to solve it is through purchasing a product. No, we respect you more than that, dear listener. That's why we're on the value for value model, which is very simple. We create value. We do it 3 times a week. And if you get any value out of what we do, you have the opportunity and or the responsibility to put value back in. It's the only way it works. It's the only way we've been going for about 200 episodes or so now. And we've been very grateful to people who listen to the show and decide, hey, I'm going to become a producer. And producer is exactly what it is. It's just like the real world, baby. If you pay to have a piece of media produced, you are a producer, not just a generous person.
Sorry.
But you are taking responsibility for your own media future. I mean, you can click on the teletube and sit there and get some free news read to you by some news model, and then get your daily allotment of Pfizer advertisements and just let the brainwashing seep in, baby. You could do that if you'd like. But if you are in the group of people who are not only waking up but standing up in this world, one great way to participate in that and take responsibility for yourself is to become a producer of the show. And there's a few ways that you can do that. One of them is by heading over to patreon.com/CCNT. That's patreon.com/CCNT. And I'm going to do a little refresh over there, see if we had any new producers come in on the Patreon. I do want to mention while I'm at it, we have a brand spanking new canarycrynewstalk.com. You're definitely going to want to join the mailing list over there because, as we've mentioned before, at any moment we could disappear from your most beloved YouTube channel or wherever you're watching this. So, Gons, I'm heading over. I'm not seeing any new producers for the Patreon. But that's okay. We also have another Patreon called patreon.com/canarycryradio. Canary Cry Radio is our interview style show we've been doing since 2012. Highly recommend you go check out those interviews. It's a good backgrounder if you're a little confused about the type of worldview we have here. But I do want to thank one producer who came in over there, and that is producer Stacy N.A.
Oops. There we go. Thank you, producer Stacy.
Is this producer Stacy No Agenda?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, thank you anyways, producer Stacy, for becoming a producer. Now, here's the thing, folks. Patreon is not the only way to become a producer. In fact, a lot of people don't like Patreon, and that is okay. We support you. That's why we have canarycryradio.com/support.
canarycryradio.com/support.
That's right, canarycryradio.com/support. Don't worry, we're going to be redoing that website as well, but as of now, it's still functional. So head on over there. You can become a producer in a lot of ways. One way, you can come in as a monthly recurring producer. We're so grateful to all of our monthly recurring producers who like to set it and forget it. And they help lay down a firm foundation for the show. We're very grateful. But if commitment is not your thing, you can go ahead and make a one-time producership in any amount that you would like. Think of the freedom, the options. It's incredible. All we ask is that, pick a number that's important to you. A lot of people like coming in with funny numbers like 33, become our Illuminati shill producers, 777, things like that. It's all fun, but pick something that feels good to you and feels right for the value that you're getting out of the show. All right, Gons, who do we have coming in on the PayPal?
All right. By the way, you're still, your green thing is...
That might just be how I am today.
Yeah. Well, no, you're back. Let me...
Gons, the producers, you're getting distracted.
I have to produce too, Okay.
I don't know. Come on.
Come on. Here. I'm going. Okay. First person here. First off, we want to thank all the recurring producers. We appreciate that. First up for this episode, we have Tristan H.
Thank you very much, Tristan H. Keeping that streak going.
That's right.
Yeah. You're on fire, Tristan H.
On fire. Well, we still need to do that thing, huh? Next up, we have producer James H.
Woo! Thank you very much, producer James H. And James H., you are officially heating up.
We don't need a jingle. We just have you. You are the jingle.
Yeah, I can do it.
All right. Next up, we have producer Ciara.
Thank you very much, producer Ciara F. coming in. Let's see. She's got a note here. Please let people know they need to RSVP for the Florida meetup. I've had many emails, but no for sure attendance besides Saturday. So if I don't get the responses, I'll focus on Saturday. Thank you. There you go. We're going to talk more about the meetups a little bit later, but if you have emailed producer Ciara about the Florida meetups, just commit, man. You guys need to commit. What's going on over there? Well, a bunch of loosey-gooseys.
Yeah, come on, commit.
Come on, man. You can email producer Ciara, ciaralauren93 at gmail.com. That's CIARALAUREN. Then the number is 93 at gmail.com. Florida people, get in on this meetup or else.
I want to know or else.
And she came in with $6.33.
Yep. Very good. Thank you very much. Next, we have producer Malik.
Thank you very much, producer Malik. And this is, you're on a streak, buddy. You're officially heating up.
Okay. And then we have, next up, producer Shield Labs.
Thank you very much, producer Shield Labs. You are also keeping that streak going.
Oh, he doesn't get it on fire? Isn't he on fire?
No, he's not on fire yet.
No,
on fire's at 6.
Oh.
We're doing it in sequences of 3 because we can track it per week.
Oh, okay. So I thought Tristan H was on fire, though.
No, you're almost on fire.
Almost on fire. Okay.
It's a new system, folks. Don't worry. We're working it out.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. All right, next up we have Juan E.
Thank you very much, Mr. Juan E.
Producer Juan. And the executive producer of episode 335 is Sir Jason A.
Thank you very much, Sir Jason A. Knight of the Anti-Foo-Bar. You're the man.
The Anti-Foo-Bar coming in hot. Okay. Other ways you can produce the show is with your time and talent.
By the way, we didn't read your amount there, Sir Jason. We're assuming that that was the meaning of the number. So just let us know if you.
It could have been. It could have been for the last episode
for the show. Yeah, I know. We'll That's why I'm wondering. Okay. But we gotta stick with the protocol. But we can make it right later, Sir Jason.
Yes. So thank you for all the producers to support who supported us with their treasure. You can support us with your time and talent. For people producing the show with their time, specifically with the timestamps, we have producer Jade Bouncerson, Christine, and producer Rachel. Also,
thank you very much. Are we thinking the whole team every time? Because I think they switch off.
They do switch off, but it's a group effort over there. Do you think I should just stick to the people that do the last episode?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how the system works. I think if it's one person doing all the work for one episode, that they should get the credit for it.
Okay. All right.
But I don't know. Maybe Jade Bouncerson can let us know how their system works over there, where we've got a wonderful hands-off management approach. We're thankful to Jade Bouncerson and the whole timestamp team. Very helpful to have those timestamps on the YouTube and soon on Podcasting 2.0 chapters.
Yep. All right. And we also accept producers to produce jingles and ISOs. And as far as I can tell, we didn't get any today. So let's move on to the art.
One art, please.
And first up, we have a piece from Ellie.
One art, please. One art, please. Another one from Ellie now. Here it is.
Woo!
Yep.
Very good. Thank you, producer Allie. That's Gazel Bonds in the chat. What do we have today, Gons?
We have Dogecoin go to the moon. Shiba Inu in his space helmet.
Yeah, very well done. Producer Ali on pencil here has got the Shiba Inu doggy with the space helmet because Dogecoin is officially, actually, literally going to the moon.
Literally. So
literally,
weird.
bro.
Are they going to actually put a Shiba Inu in the rocket? That would make it
I hope
extra.
not. There's been enough dog death in space thanks to the mid-20th centuries. Yes.
Those Russians. All right. Thank you, Producer Ali. Keep it up. Next up, we have one from producer Jay Vela.
Okay, Jay Vela coming in hot. Our resident Denver airport mural artist says up top here, lest we forget. Coming down on the left-hand side, looks like we got the Garden of Eden with the angel kicking out Adam and Eve. And then, of course, it develops to looks like Adam and Eve now sitting at a 3D printing baby machine. So we are going there. I cannot read these. Oh, design your own DNA immunization package included. Oh, good. Perfect. We've also got a little, what do we got? Oh, we got a Nephilim. It seems to be either fighting a Native American, maybe dancing with a Native American, being worshipped by a Native American. We got the serpent mound Nephilim there. Down at the bottom, we've got some floating eyeball boxes with wings overseeing some brains in jars and a scientist putting together some androids. And then to the right of that, we've got the classic robed, gas-masked figures surrounded by their bodyguards, the militarized police force. Right above that, we've got the Grim Reaper-ish type of figure coming out of some binary code on a television. And then, oh, look, Adam and Eve had their genetically modified baby. We've got the baby's head hooked up to some sort of machine there and a sign behind the two happy parents that say, secure your future with CRISPR modified genetics. Yeah, baby. Then above that, we've got some Noah's Ark iconography here. To the right of that, we've got the
Ark of the Covenant.
Yes, Ark of the Covenant by the what was the Calvary there. Yeah. Then on the far right, we've got some robed angel figures, but instead of heads, they've got floating brains in jars. Very Futurama reminiscent. And one of them is holding a sword with a key on the end of it. Very cryptic. Below that, we've got the serpent slithering up the staff and a sort of magical altar table. 2 candles, an hourglass, a scroll, a book, an open book with a sun and a moon on it. And below that, the great work. Are these drag queens?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, we got the drag queens down in the bottom right. So all sorts of fun stuff going on in this one, Jay Vela. Thank you very much for sending in the art.
I think there was a sequence here. You started with the top left and you went straight down. I think it's supposed to go to the right. But anyway, those are all debates that people will have for years to come.
Yeah,
and once the mural comes together,
to interpret. It's for the people to interpret.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that, Jay Vela. Keep it up. And last but not least, we have one from, and I'm trying to pull up the note here just so I can.
Oh, yeah.
Get it all working. Okay, this one is from producer Jocelyn.
Yeah.
Producer Jocelyn. This is from we got a note from producer Marty B. He's the musician who does People Zoo and Guns. He said, this is from one of my granddaughters, Jocelyn. It's been a while since she sent one in. Thanks. And this is from producer Marty B. So this is producer Jocelyn. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and this one's great. We get. Do we know how old Jocelyn is?
I don't remember. I feel like
was it this team that did Robot Boys, Robot Girls? That was a different team, wasn't it?
It was a different one.
Okay. Yeah. Well, here we go. We've got a comic strip style thing here. The three characters are a gray cat, a dog, and a brown cat with googly eyes. But we'll start out here. The gray cat says, talking to the dog, "So you're just going to trust everything you're told and do what they say?" And little doggy says, "Yes." Googly eye cat says, "Why?" Cute little puppy, intense thinking, finally answers, "Because ... And then the cat's down at the bottom, one face palming at the stupidity of this canine, and the googly eye kitty just looking so cute and confused. And we end it all out with a big red sigh. You know, I think this is a great description of the difference of dogs and cats. Not just dogs and cats, but also free thinkers and those who only live to obey their masters.
Are you trying to say dogs are like the sheeple?
Yes, the pack animals. They're sheeple. They just do what they're told. They live for the affection and approval of their masters, whereas cats don't care about anything except living their lives and slurping that wet food.
Not my experience with my old dogs who have passed now. My dog Toby, who was a rescue, and he was clearly abused. He was in like a dog fighting ring there. Traumatized, couldn't see another moving animal without freaking out. So it was a thing.
And didn't love you and didn't want to please you.
Oh, he loved us. When we're in the house, it was pure love. When we were out of the house, it was complete anxiety-driven disaster. But the one thing that was really interesting, because, you know, we had a big issue with controlling him, and we got to the point where, you know, you did the choke collar thing to try to control him or whatever. That wasn't working, so we got to the point where this, you know, we tried the spray, like the citronella spray and all kinds of stuff. One of the dog trainers told us he's hopeless. That was fun. But then it got to the point where there was a dog trainer who's like, "Hey, you got to use a shock collar on this one," you know? I was like, I'm really not really into the shock collar thing. But, you know, we're like, "Oh, we'll try it in the training." And so we had two dogs, Tucker and Toby. Tucker, he was a German Shepherd. The shock collar goes off and he's, you know, he kind of squirms and he obeys immediately, you know? Toby was a warrior. I think he was a warrior, because when he was misbehaving, they turned on the shock collar and he just kept sludging through. He wouldn't back down. He'd like keep moving, and you can tell it's like hurting him, but he's just like, oh, to the point where the dog trainer was like, yeah, your dog's going to die. He's going to kill himself before he obeys.
Yikes.
So he was, but I loved Toby. He was totally awesome. But yeah, it was one of those things where even a shock collar was not enough to hold this one down. He was just like, I will get to the fence.
Powerful
dog.
Really
That's our dog Toby.
Really wanted to escape.
You know, not really. He really liked he liked us. He loved us, but it was just anybody else was the enemy. So anyway, now that you bring up loyalty and thinking for themselves, I would say Toby wasn't necessarily a sheeple dog. More of a free thinker and rebellious against all authority except us.
Put it on the books, folks.
What am I putting in the book?
That your dog was a rebel.
Oh, okay. That's not a prediction.
No, not that book.
Okay,
just saying.
The other book.
He told this story. We all need to remember it. Okay. Very important piece of information.
All right. Well, I tell the story because that's it. That's all the producerships we have today. It's a little down today, which is not surprising. We did have a big week last week. So we appreciate all the producers out there.
Absolutely. And if you're out there, if you're in the chat or listening later, make sure to thank a producer today, or thank God for a producer, because they are the way to keep this show going. And thanks to them for all the producers of episode 335. We'll thank you again at the end of the show.
All right. Do we want to mention one more time the meetup, the Florida one coming up? It's happening not this upcoming weekend, the one after. Choose Your Own Adventure, and you have May 20th at Disney Springs, May 21st, Reyes Mezcaleria for Occult Bingo.
Mescaleria.
May 22nd for Universal Studios Hangout. And again, contact ciaralauren93@gmail.com. That's ciaralauren93@gmail.com. And there are other meetups coming up here. See if I have it. Here it is. Florida. That's the Florida one we just went over. SoCal, June 26th. Arizona, July 24th. Missouri, 9/11. And Ohio, October 30th. So there you go. Those are some of the other ones coming up, or at least on the schedule. I think it's important to meet people in person. Again, one of the most common things we were asked over the years is, do you know somebody that lives in my town who either listens to the show or talks about these issues or cares about these issues, or at least thinks the way I do? And we always said, we don't know. So this is a great way to figure out or find out the people in your community that do think like you and at least do listen to the show, which is it's always kind of fun to meet people in person. So there you go. I think that's it. Are we ready to get back, or you got something else to say?
No, ready, Freddy.
Ready, Freddy? Weird.
Yes, it's wake up time.
Hey, yo, wake up.
Okay,
Okie dokie.
we're going to do the thing.
Just merely mentioning Israel or questioning in any way Israel's policies is not the same thing as being pro-Hamas.
Zionist pig!
Oh, gonna get us in trouble. J-Post, that's the JerusalemPost.com. Temple Mount violence. Netanyahu says Israel protects right to worship. And let me start off first with the footage that came out. There was a lot of footage that came out from like within the temple, like a lot of like loud flashbangs and stuff going on. This one we're showing here is it just looks like chaos. People running, and just some explosions in the background. I can play a little bit of the audio here. You can hear just people running around and explosions. So let me go through the article here real quick. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insisted on Israel's intention to protect the right to worship during a meeting with numerous security heads following a night of violence in Jerusalem's Old City amid clashes at the Temple Mount. Violent clashes broke out at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem on Friday between worshippers and security forces, just as tens of thousands of Muslims gathered to mark the last Friday prayer of the Ramadan month of fasting. At least 17 Israeli police officers were injured. Oh, stuff's bouncing around. What's going on with this website here? At least 17 Israeli police officers were injured in the clashes, with approximately half of them needing treatment in hospitals, a police spokesperson said Saturday morning. One of the injured was an Israeli officer who is in moderate condition after being hit in the face with a rock. Some 205 Palestinians were injured, according to Palestine Red Crescent, with 108 of those injured transferred to Jerusalem hospitals for treatment. One of the injured lost an eye. 2 suffered serious head wounds, and 2 had their jaws fractured, the Red Crescent said. Most of the rest of the injuries were minor, it added. Footage from the Temple Mount showed Israeli security forces firing a stun grenade into Al-Aqsa Mosque, Can News reported. Police were then seen locking the doors of the mosque while worshippers were still inside, according to KAN News. Border police officers closed off Damascus Gate in the Old City in an attempt to regain control of the situation and to prevent more people from joining the riots. Following the incident, Netanyahu met with numerous security heads on Saturday morning. Quote, Israel is acting responsibly to keep law and order in Jerusalem while protecting the right to worship of the holy site, Netanyahu said during the meeting. Defense Minister Benny Gantz, Public Security Minister Omir Ohana, IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Aviv Kohavi, Israel Police Head Kobi Shabtai, Shin Bet head Nadav Argaman, National Security Council head Meir Ben Shabbat, and several other security officials were in attendance. Israeli police reported that, quote, police troops began using riot control measures a while ago in an attempt to restore order after violent riots broke out at the Temple Mount, during which hundreds of suspects started throwing rocks, bottles, and other items towards our forces. Quote, we will not allow the disruption of order, any form of violence and attempts to harm officers while taking advantage of the freedom of religion and using it to promote a violent incident that includes hundreds of worshippers starting to riot and hurting police officers. The police statement released after police managed to regain control of the Temple Mount said, or read. Earlier, a video published by KAN News showed worshippers waving Hamas flags on the mount. Israel police and the IDF had sent reinforcements to the capital in preparation for the fourth and final Friday prayers on the Temple Mount for the fasting month of Ramadan, closing off several streets in the area. That was one of the initial reports there. It's interesting how I don't know, Netanyahu's saying like, "Oh, we're going to protect the right to worship," but then like basically kind of goes all out on the people worshiping. And
yeah, I don't know if I'm fully clear on exactly what is causing these clashes. Is it Hamas causing trouble? Is everybody just there to worship and the police come and start beating people up? What exactly is happening?
It sounds to me, I mean, this is like the age-old question between
It's weird how we can go through an entire article about this and still be unclear about what exactly is happening and why.
It sounded to me from the Jerusalem Post article here that like some Palestinians threw some rocks at the Israeli police, and then the Israeli police responded with like an iron fist, kind of like, oh, you're gonna mess with us? Well, you know, not here, not today, and just kind of went hard into the civilians and stuff afterwards.
Yeah, well, that tends to be how they react to those types of things.
I know, and it's tough because that's kind of like the big debate, right? It's the ongoing Israel versus Palestine debate, and and it, to me, this is kind of like the fact that this is erupting on the Temple Mount is troublesome because it feels like it's leading to more violence and more issues in that area. This footage here came out today, just a few hours ago. This is just in fire on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Whoa, audio's not great here. So, yep, there's a crowd of people waving looks like they're waving the Jewish flag, jumping up and down, and then the mosque on fire. Or it looks like the mosque on fire. I can't tell if that's exactly the mosque. I guess it's next to the mosque. So, you know, this has always been kind of the issue, the sort of clash of Israel and Islam on the Temple Mount, who has ownership. And I don't know. I don't know how much about the fire other than the footage here. I'm showing another piece of footage here. I guess it's kind of adjacent to the Temple Mount. Pretty big fire, though. So I don't know exactly what's burning. But yeah, this is it's very interesting. Very interesting. Something to keep track of. And to me, this is reminding me of some passages about the man of sin, the Antichrist. And if you hold to the thesis, and I know not everybody agrees with this, but it's something that Chris White wrote about a few years ago, and to me it just makes biblical sense. I haven't come into anything so far that really refutes it, which is the idea that the Antichrist man of sin will present himself as the Jewish Messiah. And part of his conquest will be, because if you think about the early first century Jews, they were waiting for a conquering Messiah. This Messiah that will come in and restore Israel to greater Israel, to restore all the lands of Israel, which is this, you know, big piece of land that's beyond what they have now as a nation state. And in order to do that, you pretty much have to take out all of the surrounding enemies of Israel. And we often hear the pro-Israel people talk about how Israel's surrounded by enemies, and you can never go against Israel and stuff like that. It was because a lot of the nations that surround Israel physically are hostile towards Israel, and there's religious tension. And if you go to Daniel 11, this is the chapter where it talks about some of that. And if you go into the later verses here, it talks about a king that will exalt himself and honor himself above all other gods, which is very reminiscent of 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 4, which mentions how the man of sin will reveal himself, and he'll basically say he's greater than God and all this kind of stuff. And as part of that, it says that in verse 41, he will also invade the beautiful land. Beautiful land, many times in the Old Testament, is in reference to Israel and Jerusalem. And many countries will fall, but these will be delivered from his hand: Edom, Moab, and the leaders of the Ammonites. There's certain areas, and that's kind of how we'll know if it's the Antichrist taking over here. And this is in context to Revelation 13, where it talks about the beast and how, who can make war with him. He's going to conquer the saints. He's going to do all this stuff where he's extending his power, and he's basically taking over the landmass that was promised to Israel, and to make it look like he's the Messiah in that way. And then it says he will extend his power over many countries, and not even the land of Egypt will escape. He will gain control of the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the riches of Egypt, and the Libyans and Cushites will also submit to him. And he will, and he will, in verse 45, he will pitch his royal tents between the sea and the holy mountain, but he will meet his end with no one to help him. So that's the passage there. And I'm not saying that that's what's taking place here, but it's almost like a foreshadow of something like that, where the tensions grow once a military takeover of the Temple Mount takes place, and a military kind of overthrow of some of the surrounding nations of Israel and Israel's enemies. We may be looking at that play, that the Antichrist, as we would call him, the Messiah, the long-awaited Messiah, as the Jews would call him. So a lot of tension, a lot of stuff there to study. For those of you who have not studied it, it's something to look into. So that's kind of my take on it, because otherwise it's just like, all right, some violence clashing in the Temple Mount. Yeah, that's going to happen at some point. But more troubling is this story from i24news.tv. IDF launches largest military exercise in country's history. Do you want to take this one, Basil, or you want me to just kind of
why don't you just finish out the Israel thing?
All right. So it says here the IDF launched the largest military exercise in Israel's history Sunday, which is expected to run throughout the month of May. Participating units will train for combat in emergency scenarios, on Israel's most hostile fronts, while Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Aviv Kochavi has decided to conduct the training as originally planned, despite recent tensions in East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. The exercise, dubbed Chariots of Fire,
nice,
will simulate a month of war for the first time in Israel's history, and practice synchronized maneuvers to combat against the country's most dangerous enemies. First of all, Chariots of Fire is that 2 Kings 22? I'm trying to remember, 22 or 21, where Elijah, his servant, is, Israel's surrounded by enemies, or they're surrounded by enemies, and he says, there's no hope. And Elijah says, hey, Lord, take the scales off his eyes, let him see what's really going on. And the young man's eyes were opened, and he saw chariots of fire surrounding the enemies of Israel, to know that, hey, we're safe, basically. So he was able to see into the spiritual realm and see God's army, basically. All regular and reserve IDF forces from all commands will participate in the massive exercise and involve the Defense Ministry and National Emergency Authority, the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and other security bodies. Aside from national emergency response preparedness and combat training, the IDF hopes the month-long exercise will provide valuable research, insight, and techniques that can be employed in future combat scenarios. The Lebanon-based Shiite Hezbollah terrorist group has placed itself on high alert ahead of these maneuvers, Lebanese media reports. I mean, that's it. That's all they say in this article, so there's not much. But again, it just goes to show that we may be seeing some interesting things play out in our lifetimes, if not in probably our children's lifetimes or something in the next century or so as these tensions continue to grow.
Yeah, it would be surprising if it took that long. That's the thing about these exercises, whether they be military or medical or whatever. They don't do these. It costs a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of resources, especially in a small country like Israel, to put on these huge exercises, and they don't do it for nothing.
Yeah. And of course, if you go to Revelation 13, you see the false prophet talk about, or is mentioned as calling fire down from heaven as one of his miracles, which mirrors a lot of what happened with Elijah against the prophets of Baal. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of biblical things that are supposed to happen in the end times that counterfeit or mirror the true narrative and the story arc of the Bible to convince even the elect, right? The deception is so strong, even the elect might be deceived. And that's why Jesus talks about Jerusalem specifically in Matthew 24. If you start to see these things happen, run. And don't believe. There's going to be a lot of deception, false Christs, false prophets everywhere. And certainly we've seen a lot of that already, but specifically in that time period, in reference to the false Christ or the Antichrist, man of sin, and the false prophet. So, I pray for the people there, that they're safe, and that they come to know the Lord. Otherwise, it's just be safe, I guess. I don't know. There's not much you can do. But I did see, interestingly enough, on Twitter, a lot of, because I saw Zionist trending on Twitter last night with it was something like 30,000 tweets or something on Zionists. And a lot of it was Palestinian stuff coming from the progressive left-wing crowd, which they've always been anti-Israel, pro-Palestine. Yeah. Which, it's hard to, much like we don't take sides on the right-left paradigm, I think it's important to be to try to stay on the narrow path here when it comes to Israel, or specifically the militant, Zionist Israel, or the Palestinians and Hamas. It's a very sketchy situation there because we don't know, because that's the narrative right in front of us is, oh, you have Israel, oh, you have Hamas. And if you're pro-Israel, it's all Hamas and all the terrorists. And if you're pro-Palestinians, it's like, well, yeah, they have to defend themselves against this evil regime, the overpowering Israeli force. And it's just an ongoing paradigm. It's similar to a right-left paradigm. I think it's very important to not fall into that trap in defending one or the other. And I know it's hard to say, and I might trigger some people, especially believers who are all in on protecting Israel, the what am I trying to say here?
Geopolitical entity
thank
of
you.
Modern Israel.
Yes, the geopolitical entity of the modern nation state of Israel, because the word Israel has been weaponized, I would say, to say the least. If you go into the New Testament, there are many ways to, especially Paul talks about how not everyone who descends from Israel is Israel. I mean, it says it pretty plainly there. And I know there's a remnant, and I know there's a plan for the remnant. I'm not disputing that from my studies here, but I also think that it's dangerous to just think that one nation or one race has some, special place in all of this. And I know I'm getting into some hot water. Some people are going to turn it off and be angry at me for saying that. But I think it just refutes the whole idea of no Greek, no Jew. So anyway, before I get myself into more trouble, I will end it there.
Speaking of saving Gon's butt, let's check in on Bill and Melinda Gates.
Super painful. We're taking things that are genetically modified organisms and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein, right into the vein, right into the vein, right into the vein.
Okie dokie, folks. The moment you've all been waiting for. This is coming from thedailybeast.com, so you know it's going to be fun. The headline is Melinda Gates warned Bill about Jeffrey Epstein. Dun, dun, dun. Melinda Gates met with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein alongside her husband Bill in New York City, and soon after said she was furious at the relationship between the two men, according to people familiar with the situation. The previously unreported meeting occurred at Epstein's Upper East Side mansion in September 2013. On the same day, the couple accepted the Lasker Bloomberg Public Service Award at the Pierre Hotel and were photographed alongside then Mayor Mike Bloomberg. The meeting would prove a turning point for Gates's relationship with Epstein, the people familiar with the matter say, as Melinda told friends after the encounter how uncomfortable she was in the company of the wealthy sex offender and and how she wanted nothing to do with him. Gates's friendship with Epstein, who for years was accused of molesting scores of underage girls, still haunts Melinda, according to friends of the couple who spoke to the Daily Beast this week in light of the pair's divorce announcement, which had been weeks in the making. The Daily Beast has learned that financial and public relations specialists had been feverishly working on details of the pair's split for weeks before the couple announced their divorce on Monday. Quote, "After a great deal of thought and a lot of work on our relationship, we have made the decision to end our marriage," the two said in a brief statement posted on Twitter. Quote, "We have raised 3 incredible children and built a foundation that works all over the world to enable all people to lead healthy, productive lives." Okay. A representative for Bill and Melinda Gates did not respond to requests for comment for this report. The ties between Gates and Epstein ran much deeper than the tech mogul first admitted. As the New York Times reported, starting in 2011, Gates met with Epstein on numerous occasions. This was 3 years after Epstein pleaded guilty to soliciting an underage girl in Florida. By then, accusations that Epstein exploited girls and young women were widely reported in the press. This is, of course, something we've talked about before, but let's get it all in one spot here. As the Times reported, 2 people close to Gates acted as intermediaries between the two. Boris Nikolic, a biotech investor and former advisor to Gates, who was mysteriously named a backup executor in Epstein's last will and testament, and Melanie Walker, who worked at the Gates Foundation and served as a science advisor to Epstein. A person close to Walker told the Daily Beast she did not attend nor help set up any meetings between Gates and Epstein. Nikolic did not return multiple requests for comment. Soon after Epstein's arrest in July 2019, Gates became one of many prominent people to face scrutiny over ties to the sex trafficker. The New York Times revealed Gates had met with Epstein at a 2011 get-together at Epstein's Manhattan townhouse that included the financier's ex-girlfriend, Ava Anderson Dubin, and her daughter. Parenthetical here, Virginia Guffrey, a survivor of Epstein's sex ring, has accused Dubin's hedge funder husband, Glenn, of abuse, a charge he strenuously denied. Strenuously is such a stabbing word to put there. He's strenuously denied it. Indeed, the Times reported Gates visited Epstein multiple times from 2011 to 2013, and that Epstein had tried pitching a new charitable fund to J.P. Morgan honchos and to the Gates Foundation. In 2013, Gates also took a ride on Epstein's private jet, christened by tabloids as the Lolita Express from Teterboro Airport in New Jersey to Palm Beach, Florida, according to flight records reviewed by the Times. CNBC also reported that Gates rendezvoused with Epstein in New York in 2013. When Gates first met Epstein, he was still Microsoft's chairman and the second richest person in the world with a net worth of $56 billion. Quote, I met him. I didn't have any business relationship or friendship with him, Gates said in September 2019, as media coverage into his connections with Epstein were heating up. Quote, I didn't go to New Mexico or Florida or Palm Beach or any of that. Ooh, somebody's lying. There were people around him who were saying, hey, if you want to raise money for global health and get more philanthropy, he knows a lot of rich people. Quote, every meeting where I was with him were meetings with men. I was never at any parties or anything like that. He never donated any money to anything that I know about. One associate in the technology world who's attended the same events as Epstein, including a TED conference in Monterey, California, was surprised Gates had considered cultivating philanthropic ties with the late pedophile. Quote, I can't make the claim that so many are claiming, the person told the Daily Beast on the condition of anonymity, referring to people in Epstein's orbit who said they had no suspicions of Epstein's abuse. Quote, if you ask Bill Gates, he'll say, oh, I had absolutely no idea he wasn't up to anything of the highest moral character. But I seriously doubt Epstein's moral character. Quote, the people around him, the person added, referring to Epstein, quote, had a varying spectrum of what they knew and what they didn't know and how they rationalized it. This person wasn't surprised that Melinda Gates was put off by Epstein, saying, quote, a lot of people were uncomfortable with Epstein completely independent of his sexual misconduct. He just was an obnoxious guy. He almost made a point of having bad manners, not paying attention at dinner. I could see how anybody, even without suspicions, would not want to be around him. Still, Epstein had a superhuman ability as a social climber. The one-time colleague of the financier said, adding that the photos displayed in Epstein's mansion of former President Bill Clinton and Pope John Paul II were, quote, really obnoxious, especially if you're somebody like Melinda and hanging around with heads of state anyway. Then to have someone do this endless name dropping. When he got up from the table at dinner, he wouldn't just get up. He'd tell you he had a call with the president of some country. Epstein also reportedly had a habit of bragging that he was an unofficial advisor to Bill Gates. A claim, oh boy. A claim the Microsoft founder's representatives denied. One Times reporter indicates Epstein claimed to be a tax consultant for the tech magnate. After his initial meeting with the financier, the billionaire philanthropist told Gates Foundation staff in an email, quote, his lifestyle is very different and kind of intriguing, although it would not work for me. Asked about his message, Gates' spokeswoman said he, quote, was referring only to the unique decor at Epstein's Manhattan mansion. Epstein's habit of spontaneously bringing acquaintances in to meet Mr. Gates. There's quite a bit more in here. I mean, this is like a full expose breakdown, so I don't think we need to make it through the whole thing, but you kind of get the point. Mm-hmm. Part of it is, I mean, Epstein had already been tagged by the federal government as a pedophile by the time he started hanging out with Gates. So Gates should have kind of known that. Now, I agree that, I'm sure Epstein talked a lot of nonsense and claimed to be closer to people just to, get people to think he's cool. But at the same time, it's not looking good. But it seems like that might have something to do with the divorce, or at least certainly is at least one Lego in that box.
When you mentioned this too right before we were going live here, the first thing that I thought of when I saw this headline was that maybe Bill is in for it. Maybe he's gonna get taken down. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, you know. I mean, who knows? Sometimes people just get divorced just because they're done. They're finished. The relationship's done. They don't feel the same. They're sick of each other, you know, can't handle the snoring, you know, even if you're the richest couple on the planet and you could sleep in separate mansions halfway across the world from each other and not even, you know, means nothing financially. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty drastic move. So, yeah, it seems, I don't know, one theory, there's lots of theories, but one theory is maybe something might be coming down the pipe for old Bill, and they just decided to get ahead of it and separate Melinda from the situation.
I mean, there's a lot of ties. This article just goes on and on with the connections. And
yeah,
a lot of it,
30 paragraphs after
I was
going to
say, a lot of it had been reported on over the years by conspiracy theorists.
Right.
You know, so it was never really a thing. But it's interesting that the Daily Beast would report it, which is why I would even say that there might be something coming down the pike for Bill. Because there's a lot of evidence that they were snug. And, you know, the one thing that I think a bigger takeaway, other than the details here, and again, all the stories we talk about today are linked at canarycrynewstalk.com, is and it shouldn't be overlooked here, is Epstein's obsession with transhumanism.
Right.
And, you know, one of the things that Melinda Gates said recently was how she knows that the vaccine doesn't have a microchip. Have you seen that quote?
Melinda?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, this was here, let me see if I can play this. This was...
What a strange thing for her to be even talking about.
Well, she got asked about it.
Okay.
And it was on, I don't know if it was directly on John Oliver's show here, but this is where the John Oliver clips the thing here.
In all of us. Something his wife had this response to.
I know my husband is not vaccinating people and putting a microchip in her arm because that technology doesn't even exist, and he's never uttered the words out of his mouth. So,
look at Bill's face. For those of you watching, that smug look of like, and for her to say that technology doesn't exist,
yeah, it's a lie.
Liar! What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Of course it exists.
Yeah, it's existed for decades.
And it's just a weird clip for one, but for two, again, that obsession with Epstein. This was a Business Insider headline that came out on August 1st, 2019. I bring it up to remind everybody that this is not just like speculation. This is stuff that's been out in the mainstream here. BusinessInsider.com. Headline: Jeffrey Epstein reportedly wanted to, quote, seed the human race with his DNA as part of his fascination with transhumanism. Here's what that means. And it goes into, you know, the article isn't...
his ranch in New Mexico, where he wanted to bring a bunch of women and impregnate them.
Yeah, pretty crazy stuff there. And they try to kind of downplay it in the article, which is pretty disgusting of the Business Insider here. But
yeah,
in any case, you know, you tie that with Bill Gates on stage during that TED Talk talking about like, oh, we're on this trajectory for the human population to get to 9 billion, and we need to use vaccines. He uses vaccines specifically, and birth control to bring that number down. You know, why would you even say that? It's just such a weird thing to say.
Who said that? That
was Bill Gates. No, Bill Gates.
Bill Gates. Yeah, well, you know, he used the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for depopulation.
Or population control, I thought it
population control, right.
So, in any case, you know, I don't know what's going on with the divorce. Nobody does. Part of it is really none of our business, you know, truly, when it comes to just their personal marriage there.
Right.
But in terms of all the shenanigans that surrounds them and this interesting connection that's being made with Epstein, yeah. I don't know, man. I just I hope it's like a takedown of Bill in terms of like some form of justice to the victims, because there are hundreds of unnamed victims in the wake of not just Bill and Melinda Gates with their foundation in Africa and stuff like that, but all the people that were trafficked, all the young women that were trafficked with Epstein. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's right. It's in black and white, ink on paper. Bill denied ever flying on the Lolita Express or going to Palm Springs, and he's right there on the flight logs.
Liar!
He did. You got caught lying about hanging out with a pedophile, flying on his plane to a party town. That's just, I'm sorry, Palm Beach, not Palm Springs. Yeah, you just did. So, hello. Of course he's going to lie about other things. He's just who he is. He's just a lying man. And I think Melinda knows it.
Yeah. And again, who knows if Melinda's just trying to get out while she can, take some
you know
money.
What? You know what's interesting?
What's interesting?
If something was going to happen and Bill was going to have to go to court or defend himself, I forget what it's called, but you can't force wives to testify against their husbands. Technically, Melinda could testify against Bill.
Because once she's divorced,
because they're divorced, she can testify.
Interesting. Is that true?
Yeah.
That a wife can't? Is it they can't, or that they're not?
They cannot be forced to testify against their husband.
To testify.
Yeah.
Okay, but then what if they wanted to? Can't they? If they're not forced.
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know about that. I just know the forced thing.
Well, it would make sense
Green Pastures says no, she can't. I don't know.
Unless she
wants to. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
so I'm assuming you can testify against your spouse if you want to. You just can't be forced.
Well, yeah, but either way, it would make sense that you would want from Melinda's point of view, take the divorce, take the money, take half of the assets, and then when they take Bill down, she keeps her half. Because I don't know how it works legally, but I'm just assuming here that she gets to keep her pot, and whatever Bill has left, that gets taken down because
her money is protected.
Her money's protected. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
If there's any kind of reparations.
I mean, it's on one hand, I understand the attitude where it's like, oh, it's just a couple getting divorced. Like, it's none of our business. They could be getting divorced for any reason. Yada yada yada. But at the level that they're at, it's not just a couple getting divorced.
I know.
I mean, there's in a position that he's in, getting a divorce really just hurts his PR. And hey, I've seen House of Cards. I know how these people think. You stay together, even if you don't love each other, even if you never see each other. You live in different countries in giant mansions. You just stay together to keep the edifice together. But to actually follow through with a divorce, it's this is not a small thing.
I've watched Ozark.
Does that happen in Ozark?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. There's your Bill update.
Thanks, Bill, for all you've given us. All right, one more story here.
Artificial intelligence.
And I had to find this on, what is this, extension13.com, which is kind of a weird outlet, but it's, I think it was a mirror of story here. The Pentagon inches towards letting AI control weapons.
I actually had a Wired article about this.
Was it Wired? Because I couldn't find not only could I not find the Wired one, it was you sent to me Apple.
It came through as the Apple thing.
Yeah.
Well, let's look for the Wired thing because we don't want to just read off of some blog here.
No, I know, but I think it's a mirror of the...
Oh, you think they mirrored the Wired article?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why would they otherwise...
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Start reading it. Let me find the Wired one and we'll check it out.
Okay, well, I got another one here. This is Flipboard. It looks a little bit more official. Anyway, this looks like... no. Can I actually read it? Let's see. Oh, I got to join. Okay, well, I'm just going to read it here. Last August, several dozen military drones and tank-like robots took to the skies and roads 40 miles south of Seattle. Their mission? Find terrorists suspected of hiding among several buildings. So many robots were involved in the operation that no human operator could keep a close eye on all of them. So they were given instructions to find and eliminate enemy combatants when necessary. The mission was just an exercise organized by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, a blue sky research division of the Pentagon. The robots were armed with nothing more lethal than radio transmitters designed to simulate interactions with both friendly and enemy robots. I remember reporting on this, by the way, the exercise.
Yeah.
The drill was one of several conducted last summer to test how artificial intelligence could help expand the use of automation in military systems, including in scenarios that are too complex and fast-moving for humans to make every critical decision. The demonstrations also reflect a subtle shift in the Pentagon's thinking about autonomous weapons, as it becomes clearer that machines can outperform humans at parsing complex situations or operating at high speed. U.S. Army Futures Command General John Murray told an audience at the U.S. Military Academy last month that swarms of robots will force military planners, policymakers, and society to think about whether a person should make every decision about using lethal force in new autonomous systems. Quote, "It is within a human's ability to pick out which ones have to be engaged, and then make 100 individual decisions," Murray asked. Quote, "Is it even necessary to have a human in the loop?"
Yes, it is.
Should be.
I slapped the Wired article in there, by the way.
Other comments from military commanders suggest interest in giving autonomous weapons systems more agency. At a conference on AI in the Air Force last week, Michael Kanan, director of operations for the Air Force Artificial Intelligence Accelerator at MIT, and a leading voice on AI within the U.S. military, said, "Thinking is evolving." He said AI should perform more identifying and distinguishing potential targets while humans make high-level decisions. Quote, "I think that's where we're going," Kanan said.
No kidding, said Basil.
Quote, quote, "Is it even necessary to have a human in the loop?" Did this guy say the same thing?
Yeah, you're just reading a secondary headline.
Oh. General John Murray, U.S. Army Futures Command. At the same event, Lieutenant General Clinton Hinote, Deputy Chief of Staff for Strategy, Integration, and Requirements at the Pentagon, says that whether a person can be removed from the loop of a lethal autonomous system is, quote, "one of the most interesting debates that is coming and has not been settled yet." This May, a report from the National Security Commission on AI, NSCAI, an advisory group created by Congress, recommended, among other things, that the U.S. resist calls for an international ban on the development of autonomous weapons. Of course they did. I remember that too. Because we were like, yeah, don't do that. We have all the great autonomous weapons, so don't want to stop that train. Timothy Chung, the DARPA program manager in charge of the swarming project, says last summer's exercise were designed to explore when a human drone operator should and should not make decisions for the autonomous systems. For example, when faced with an attack on several fronts, human control can sometimes get in the way of a mission because people are unable to react quickly enough. Quote, "Actually, the system can do better from not having someone intervene," Chung said. Oh, really just anti-human.
Well, that's the thing. It's the obsession with efficiency. And what efficiency? Killing.
Kill.
Humans, what they're saying without saying it is robots are more efficient at deciding to kill someone.
It will kill.
The drones and the wheeled robots, each about the size of a large backpack, were given an overall objective, then tapped AI algorithms to devise a plan to achieve it. Some of them surrounded buildings while others carried out surveillance sweeps. A few were destroyed by simulated explosives. Some identified beacons representing enemy combatants and chose to attack. The U.S. and other nations have used autonomy in weapons systems for decades. Some missiles, for instance, can autonomously identify and attack enemies within a given area. But rapid advances in AI algorithms can change how the military uses such systems. Off-the-shelf AI code capable of controlling robots and identifying landmarks and targets, often with high reliability, will make it possible to deploy more systems in a wider range of situations. But as the drone demonstrations highlight, more widespread use of AI will sometimes make it more difficult to keep a human in the loop. This might prove problematic because AI technology can harbor biases or behave unpredictably. A vision algorithm trained to recognize a particular uniform might mistakenly target someone wearing similar clothing. Chung says the Swarm project presumes that AI algorithms will improve to a point where they can identify enemies with enough reliability to be trusted. I don't like that confidence by Chung, by the way.
Well, it's funny that it's identifying enemies. Like, it's just identifying them visually.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing else involved.
It's racist.
Like, it's just gonna be like, depending where they are in the world, like, here's their skin color, here's a type of uniform. Where, we've been fighting our longest war in history for 20 years with no uniform, an ununiformed force.
Yeah.
So that's just already a completely moot heuristic for these robots. And as far as, deciding who's who, that usually just comes from the intelligence apparatus, and or a human being points a gun at them and asks them questions, and then you make the decision. This is just terrifying.
Yeah, I don't like where this is headed. And if you recall the story of about a week ago, I guess sometime last week, where they're talking about how AI is doing it. The current trajectory of AI is doing it all wrong. That it's not supposed to. This one-to-one type of input-output is never going to really be that intelligent.
Right.
That it's only going to be as good as the programmers program the output.
You know what? Yeah.
I was just going to say, whereas the I can't remember what it was. It was some kind of brain.
They're going for the general artificial intelligence that has
AI.
That deals with multiple or an innumerable amount of inputs at the same time to generate some sort of general thoughts instead of just following algorithms.
But it was also about like a consciousness. Remember, it was talking about then these machines will actually dream, and we want them to dream because that's how consciousness emerges and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of this seems like a liability issue too.
Yeah,
like if an automated intelligence makes a bad decision on the battlefield, the military is not legally liable.
The robot did it.
Yeah, the robot, it's its own person. It has its own rights. We're not responsible for the actions of rogue AI.
And then college kids all across the Gen Z college students all across the country started marching for the autonomy of AI, that they will not be blamed for all the military killing going on.
Wow, what a confusing time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, we
gonna call it there.
Yeah, let's do it. Just for reference here, anybody who's wants more stories, we have an additional story section on the website in the show notes. Some of the stories we didn't get to. Man videotapes himself stealing J&J jab. It was a Newsweek. 4 years after execution, different DNA found on weapon. That's a New York Times article, which is just horrifying. And it was an African-American man who was executed. And I think maybe not right away. It could be used in the future. But this whole idea of how the justice system doesn't work. Talk about using an execution of an innocent man, an innocent black man. That is
right.
That can be some ammo for the woke crowd there, especially if they're anti-government and anti-current justice system. Fauci says mask wearing will now be seasonal. Drop that one because it was like, all right, Fauci, just trying to stay in the news.
That's
there.
Actually a step back from his
forever. double mask.
His masks are just normal now.
Yeah. And then there was the 7 dead, including shooter from Colorado Springs. I dropped that one because it's like, there's not really an angle to it other than more gun control conversation maybe, and unfortunate, deaths. It was, I think a child was killed in it. It's just horrific. And then there was an AP article. We covered it in the last episode, so we didn't do it here. But jab does not spread via skin contact / inhalation. Fact check by AP. I mean, they really, really want to debunk that story.
So do you need a jingle for this new segment you're doing now?
It's not really a segment.
What you're not gonna hear. Bow.
Sure, what you're not gonna hear.
It's kind of a segment.
Kind of. I just reading the summary for anybody who wants to, get into those stories. And maybe it's something to do at the end.
Here's what didn't make the cut.
There you go. I could just cut that right there, and that'll be my jingle. Okay, that's it.
Okay, sounds good. That's a show, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Let's see. We are going to be back on May the 12th. That's this Wednesday, folks. So put it on your calendar. Turn on notifications. And if you haven't done it yet, if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to want to make sure to hit that like button, turn on notifications, and also make sure to subscribe.
Oh, yes. I really dropped the ball.
Subscribe, bell button, all. Like, subscribe, bell button, all.
Yeah, I tried to stretch that out for you.
I'm doing some document editing, so it gets a little...
Well, there you go. Make sure to be back here on Wednesday, the 12th. And we're going to need producers for Wednesday's show. We appreciate all of our producers for this episode 335 of Canary Cry News Talk. That is producers Stacy, Ciara, Juan, Sir Jason, Night of the Anti-Foobar, Malik, James, Shield Labs, Tristan H. Kind of a little bit of a short list today, but we are so grateful to all of our producers for coming in, making this show happen. And of course, thanks to Jade Bouncerson and team for the timestamps, and all of our artists. You guys are the best. Couldn't do the show without you. If you're out there, you want to become a producer of the show, remember, just take a second to think, what is this show worth? Think of all the other news sources you take in. Maybe it's some mainstream ones. Maybe it's some other online outlets. Are they doing advertising? Are they, what are they doing? Think about Canary Cry News Talk, what it means to you, and consider becoming a producer. It's not just about, putting value back into the system, but from the reports that I hear from all of our producers, you get just as much value out of becoming a producer. There's a sense of ownership there, a sense of taking part in the revolution against how things have been, moving into how things should be. We appreciate everybody for keeping the lights on over here. Remember, you can become a producer at patreon.com/CCNT, or if you're one of the real cool kids, head on over to canarycryradio.com/support.
canarycryradio.com/support.
That's right. And a big old congratulations to Kyle Sport in the chat for staying on the entire show. I see you, Kyle Sport. You made it, buddy. All right. So there you go. Yes, canarycryradio.com/support. If you're a creative person, there's all sorts of ways to produce the show, not just your treasure, but also your time and your talent. If you're a visual artist, if you're a musician, if you are a producer or an editor of some kind, you can create jingles, create art, create whatever you create. Make it for us. Make it for the show. Buy the show, send it into the show. We'll put it on the show. You can send that into canarycryradio@gmail.com if you like it nice and easy, or canarycryradio@protonmail.com if you like to keep it sneaky. Let's see here. You can also help out the show very simply by sharing the show. Just share it on your social media, share it with your friends. Also, leaving ratings and reviews. Head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Canary Cry News Talk. Here's an easy little tip. Just in whatever search bar you use, just put Apple Podcasts Canary Cry News Talk. That'll take you right to the show. And leave a rating and a review. It's very, very helpful. All those ratings and reviews go a long way to not only convincing all the iTunes algorithms to share the show. We have people who listen to the show every week who found the show because the algorithms suggested it to them. And the more reviews and ratings we have, the more that happens. So you never know. Your rating or review could be the thing that triggers somebody else to find the show. It's easy to do. It takes about 2 minutes. And it really helps out the show. So go leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or just wherever you want. Just spread the word. But like I said, sharing the show out with people that you know and love is one of the most effective ways to help out the show and help out your friends and family, because you got friends and family who are starting to wake up to the fact that the world is not what it seems. They're not falling for the narratives anymore. They want to know what's going on for real. And you can share the show with them. We like to call it rattling cages. And if you need any other instructions, here's what you do. You just walk right up to them, you grab them by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right. Just ask Noah. All right, Gons. Any last words?
No Doge.
No Doge. Gons says say no to Doge. All right, folks.
I'm going to regret saying that, I think. I feel like I'm going to regret saying it one day.
Yeah, I think so too.
You know what I thought would be very
delicious,
very ironic, if the mark of the beast was connected to Dogecoin, and you had to get a Doge tattoo on your forehead or right hand.
Well, I'm sure there's some people who agree with you out there. That would be ironic.
Ironic,
all right.
And also fuzzy.
So cute little doggy.
Oops, sorry.
Well. All right, folks, there you go. Make sure to tune in on May the 12th. That's this Wednesday. We'll be going live again sometime between 11 and 1. Somewhere in
We
there.
did get an email asking when our broadcast time is, and yeah,
I know. We don't have it posted because it's a little wishy-washy.
It's a moving target.
Somewhere between 11 and 1 on Wednesday, we'll be going live. That's Pacific Standard Time. So there you go. Be there or be square. And thanks for tuning in to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, think outside the cage.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
I want to shake things up, shake things up. I want to shake things up, shake things up. Leave the bird alone. I want to stir up some controversy. I want to rattle a few cages. I want to rattle a few cages. I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. A crusader for the little guy. Little guy. Little guy. Well, we'll see about that.
Whatever, Illuminati.
Get ready for it.
It will kill.
Look it up.
It will kill.
Look it up.
We were made by the aliens.
Fun fact, I believe it was another fun fact.
You can't handle the truth.
Fun fact. Another fun fact.
Brings me back to my Screamo days.
Aliens.
In the future, humans will be confined in a people's zoo.
Aliens.
I'll keep you safe and warm in my people's zoo.
It will kill.
I'll keep you safe and warm now in my people's zoo. Liar! You, yeah, you in my people's zoo. I'll keep the cameras on.
Come on, man.
You're fat and sassy in my people's zoo.
Everybody loves waffles.
I'll make you fat and sassy in my people's zoo. You, yeah, you in my people's zoo.
I tried to tell you.
I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo.
Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths.